this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Hey, this is U.S. Olympic gold medalist Tara Davis-Woodhull.
And I'm U.S. Paralympic gold medalist Hunter Woodhull.
As athletes, our lives are about having a clear path.
And a team that you can absolutely trust.
So when it came to getting the best mortgage,
we chose PennyMac.
PennyMac is proud to be the official mortgage provider of Team USA and you.
Learn more at pennymac.com. PennyMac Loan Services, LLC, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS ID 35953. Licensed by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation under the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act. Conditions and restrictions may apply.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year. You can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Tired of spills and stains on your sofa? Wash away your worries with Anabay. Anabay is the only designer sofa that's machine washable inside and out, starting at just $699. Plus, Anabay sofas are pet-friendly, stain-resistant, and feature changeable slipcovers and modular pieces. Get up to 60% off site-wide with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Visit washablesofas.com to get yours now. That's washablesofas.com. Offers are subject to change and certain restrictions may apply.
You're listening to a podcast, so you're doing something else too, like maybe scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving places you like without thinking you'll get them. Because that's what house hunting has become. But Redfin isn't built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents, which means when you find a place you love, you've got a real shot at getting it. Redfin helps turn saved listings into real addresses. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Cool Zone Media.
Hey everyone, Robert Evans here with Behind the Bastards, and we've got some kind of sad news today. This is going to hit members of the community pretty hard. But 48 years ago, on November 10th, 1975, the SS Edmund Fitzgerald went down in Lake Superior, killing all 29 crew members on board. This is a hard time of the year for everybody here at Behind the Bastards, for all of you at home. And the only thing that makes it easier is the knowledge that both the Russian Federation and the Chinese government have recently substantially increased the sizes of their nuclear stockpile, while the United States is in the process of renovating its own nuclear weapons. And my hope, I think all of our hope, is that the leaders of our world can kind of band together in this time of conflict and sadness to finally expend the entirety of their nuclear stockpiles, detonating them over Lake Superior. That's my hope. I know it's all of your hope back at home. And I really think what can carry us through this is some classic Mao era propaganda posters showing Joe Biden, Xi Jinping, and Vladimir Putin walking hand in hand, surrounded by a crowd of little kids in Red Guard uniforms, heading towards the light of a new atomic sun, while a series of mushroom clouds detonate over Lake Superior's depths. Anyway, welcome to the show, Jamie.
That's so, first of all, thank you. Thank you for that. I needed to hear it. I think we all, the image you described, and I hate that my mind went here, conjured the image of Paul Walker in the convertible next to Brian Griffin.
That's right. That's right.
That
That's
was
right.
sort of what I was picturing. The image you described has that exact same image. Throw someone in the back seat. Same exact shit.
Yes. That's the dream, Jamie. That's the dream. God, what a beautiful, beautiful dream.
I really think about being a member of Paul Walker's family at the time that image was circulating. Where you're just like,
you mean from your jacuzzi filled with $100 bills? Yes.
Even so, my loved one, my dearly departed, being thrown in a convertible next to a cartoon dog who, to add insult to injury, would be resurrected within months.
Yes.
And like Brian the dog, Brian the dog was resurrected, I think, on the same timeline as Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
like
more
it
or
was
less.
like,
very similar characters. Yes.
Yeah. It was, and we can all agree that
both
Brian
have been
is
on
a
Bill
Christ-like.
Maher's show.
They're both Marheads, and they also and they both are like middling authors, you could say.
Yeah, that's fair to say. So Jamie, speaking of mediocre men, how do you feel? Have you been keeping up with the story of Bastards Pod alumni Sam Bankman-Fried?
Okay, so I know the broad strokes, but as soon as the joyous news started coming in, I knew that we were going to be doing this, and I don't know any of the particulars except for tweets of yours that have been algorithmed to the top of my feed. I'm just, there's no one I would rather be with to let it just wash over me.
Robert,
family.
Can I ask you to please share your working title for this episode? Because it's funny.
Oh, yeah. It's Sam Bankman not Fried and in parentheses because he is in jail.
I think it's funny.
And I think that is far superior to Sam Bankman jailed.
Yeah.
And
no, that's not creative at all. You got to spend a lot of extra words to make it creative.
I'm not interested in other perspectives on that title. I think that you got it exactly right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Brevity is some bullshit, as a great author once said. So, Jamie, speaking of great authors, 80% of this episode is shitting on Michael Lewis, the author of The Big Short. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
No, this is going to be a great one for the Lewis heads in the audience.
Wow. Okay. This is going to be.
Oh, buckle up. Yeah. Now, this is relevant. Lewis.
The man just said, buckle up.
Oh, yeah. Strap the fuck in
Buckle
and down.
up, fuckleheads.
We are starting with Michael Lewis, author of The Big Short, Jamie.
Okay. I feel like when I recently saw a picture of my 3-year-old niece going to a Wiggles concert, and I just caught myself smiling in the same way. This is great.
Yeah, no, this is great. So on January 5th, 2022, Sam Bankman-Fried sent a message to one of his many signal loops. For what it's worth, February 8th through 16th, Michael Lewis is going to be in the Bahamas profiling us. Now, if you haven't been following the story, and if Michael Lewis is not familiar to you, then you probably do remember like the most famous result of one of his novels, which is the movie The Big Short. This was based on a book Lewis wrote about a group of traders who had the foresight to predict and profit off of the 2008 financial crash. They realized that like the subprime loan business was like a bunch of hooey, and they shorted it, right? Made a bunch of money while everybody else lost their jobs.
You love to see it.
You love to see it. His other best-known work is probably Moneyball, which is about a baseball team manager who uses what's called sabermetrics, which, without getting into it, is basically being Nate Silver, but also actually running a sports team, right?
Okay, that is also that in 2020, I started doing this bit on cursed Zoom comedy shows called the Boyfriend Criterion Collection. And it's just like Blu-rays that are in your house against your living will. Moneyball is very much a part of the Boyfriend Criterion Collection. It's right up there with Whiplash. It's like a disaster.
I must say, if you did not date the worst man you've ever dated in your entire life in 2017 that was obsessed with all things Michael Lewis, then were you really in Los Angeles?
Yeah, no, that's true. The only non-problematic, by the way.
What if your worst boyfriend couldn't read, really? It makes you think.
Then you're the median American. And look,
I honestly don't even know who I'm talking about. Like, it's impossible to say.
Folks,
I know.
The only non-problematic piece of physical media that you can have in your house as a boyfriend is an original VHS tape of Tremors. That's just the way it works. So.
I would fight with you if I didn't feel the same way. I think that is very much, that's a good sign. It's an excellent sign.
Thank you.
The more prominently displayed, the better.
To say that Michael Lewis is a famous writer or famous journalist puts it pretty lightly. He's probably the best known journalist in the country and almost certainly the wealthiest. There's not a lot of competition for that, but like he's definitely in the running. He's what you'd call an access journalist. He is somebody whose stories come from his ability to get close to his subjects and just kind of exist with them during a crucial period of time as a fly on the wall. There's a number of ways to do this. There are a couple of like big Trump administration books written by journalists who basically just got to sit around Trump and his White House while things went insane. The route that Lewis takes is to befriend the people that he's writing about, right? He is this guy, and people who know him will say he just kind of makes people comfortable around him. He is a guy that you want to have at a party. He's pleasant company. Enough people have said this that I assume it's true based on just like how he does his stories. He's good at putting folks at ease and they don't mind him being around, and that's how he gets a lot of his stories. Now, as a general rule, if you are in the position that Sam Bankman-Fried and his friends were in circa 2022, running a massive financial shell game, you would be hesitant to welcome
and very
in.
well, I think we can all agree based on the information we
like
had.
Kings.
Talk about a game of 4D chess.
Yeah. The last guy you might want hanging around your office is a dude who could literally, like Michael Lewis could literally in like the space of a phone call get articles greenlit in every newspaper in the country, right? He has that kind of pull. He is that reliable a seller for his stories. Like nobody would not want to take a story that he had. So you would want to be cautious. You would think you'd want to be cautious about letting this guy into your house. Yeah. But there's a reason why they said yes when he reached out to SBF. And it's that Michael Lewis's reputation among people in the finance industry was not, oh, he wrote this book that's critical of us. Oh, he's this guy who exposes the dirt of the finance industry. This is a guy who can make you into a celebrity. And in early 2022, that was the entire vision of everyone like connected business-wise to Sam Bankman-Fried was we need to turn this guy into a celebrity who's constantly everywhere to raise the profile of this exchange, right? They spent something like $1 billion on a variety of different corporate and celebrity endorsements. Of the $9 billion that was missing, about $1 billion went towards shit to boost FTX and to boost Sam's profile, right?
I'm sorry, where's you got to spend money to make money as the aphorism goes. I guess so. You got to spend $10 billion to make nothing, to go to jail. You have to famously spend $10 billion to go to jail, is what I'm saying.
To go to forever prison, Jamie. Let's be honest about this.
He's going to, for every time I've seen Forever Prison, very often from you, I hear it in the cadence of the Forever Purge trailer. You're like, it's the Forever Prison.
Yeah, that is where he's going. And that's, again, everyone has kind of cut ties. Everyone legitimate has cut ties with not just Sam, but like crypto in general in the wake of Sam's collapse. But there was about a 1.5 year period where like every bank was looking into it. Every tech company was putting shit on the blockchain. The last kind of holdout, and the reason why Sam put so much money into this, was politicians, right? There were a few who would, but like most people who were in politics would not even take donations directly from crypto, right? You had to launder that shit. And Sam was looking to buy himself a sizable chunk of Congress so that he could make sure that regulations on crypto favored his company specifically, which is why he did stuff like, he spent tens of millions of dollars getting Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen to like pretend to be his friends. He sat down next to Bill Clinton on fucking stage in a very cringy interview. He paid Larry David to make a Super Bowl ad. But all of that, the potential all of that had to legitimize him, paled in comparison to having the Big Short dude treat you like a financial genius, right? If Michael Lewis treats you like Michael Burry, who's one of the characters from The Big Short who became a big name after Lewis wrote this book, if he's like, this guy is that kind of financial genius, then everybody's going to start taking your calls, even people who like have been hiding from crypto because they're worried that what happened would happen, right? That you'd get 10 million in donations and have to pay them back because it turned out that it was a con man, know?
There's a note of it that it almost reminds me when like Errol Morris like profiled and worked for Elizabeth Holmes. You're just like, that level of profile versus L.
Yes, this turns you into somebody who's like, who can be taken seriously, because that's who Lewis is, right? He is that big a deal. I'm not like puffing him up. He doesn't need it, right?
No, he got people to care about Moneyball, the most boring ass thing I've ever heard about in my life.
Well, and that's the thing. He is one of these guys. He's maybe the main character of this episode. I wouldn't call him quite a bastard. But one of the things you have to give him is he is legitimately a very good writer. There's no other way you get people to give a shit about Moneyball. He's like, I read his whole Sam Bankman-Fried book. I think it's bullshit, but I didn't get bored at any point. He knows how to pace a piece of writing, you know? Mm-hmm. So he decides to come knocking. Sam is immediately on board. All of their PR people are on board. Not everyone at FTX is on board. Carolyn Edison, who is his on-again, off-again girlfriend who testified against him repeatedly, she is running Alameda, which is the company that bankrupts everything that he is illegally funneling consumer deposits into. She is basically like and she does not like the idea of having Michael Lewis around. Now, she can't really confront Sam Bankman-Fried when she has a bad idea. Nobody can. So she just kind of hedges it and says in the Signal chat, makes sense. I feel like my instincts are more towards under the radar, but I might just be irrationally biased towards that in general. And then like an emoji of a face sticking its tongue out. And Sam replies, same, except exactly the opposite. Great.
Like, you're down bad if you're asking Sam Bankman-Fried to make sense.
Yeah.
That's challenging. Oh, God. That's such... I mean, I don't know. I know we've talked about her in the past, but that, what a mess. What a nightmare.
She's in a rough situation, and we'll talk a lot about how he treats her in this, but Will McCaskill is also in that Signal chat, and Will is basically the founder. He's not like literally the founder, but he is the founder of what is most commonly talked about as the effective altruism movement, and definitely its figurehead, right? He is the big guy. He's this Oxford professor who he pills Sam Bankman-Fried on the idea. And his response is kind of, I think, part of why this winds up going down. He says, I think either approach is reasonable, should just be a deliberate, coordinated plan. But if a whole bunch of attention is going to be on FTX, Sam, and EA, whatever happens, then getting ahead of the game and controlling the narrative is necessary. Yup, responded Sam. And they did it. Michael Lewis spends like a year with this guy. Like, he spends a lot of time around them. Everyone's very excited because what happened last year is Sam's world collapses and he gets charged with like 7 felonies. And then right afterwards, Michael Lewis is like, by the way, I've been basically living with him for a year. And everyone's like, oh shit, this could be pretty good. Because like this guy can write, he's been he's written about a financial collapse before. He's got front seat tickets to this whole thing. And then the book comes out. And unfortunately for Lewis, the book comes out. He times the release right for when the court case starts. So we get all of this right alongside his book. We get all of these Signal texts and stuff that were not in his book. And kind of the overwhelming thing that you see when you compare what comes out in the court case, what comes out in the testimony of his friends to the text of Lewis's book is that like, oh, Michael got kind of fucking conned by this dude, right?
Oh,
yeah. Like he fell for it. Yeah.
And I mean, it speaks to the level of confidence one would have to have in their own reporting to time it with the trial. Because if you had even a remote feeling that you had gotten it wrong, I would be like, release it a year after the trial, like bury it.
And that's the thing. I can see if you're just some journalist and this is your first book, or you just you're not like a huge hit. So like you are your publisher has a lot of power and they're like, we want this to drop when the case does, because that's when it'll sell best. I get that you might not have the suction necessary to move it. Michael Lewis can say, we are putting this out this day, and like, suck my dick, I'm Michael Lewis, it'll make you money, right? And he doesn't, which suggests he has the same kind of hubris that Sam Bankman-Fried did in a lot of ways.
Bummer.
So to give you an example of how emotionally involved Lewis is in this case, there's a good write-up on the court case by a journalist who was there during the trial, which was not filmed, writing for Jacobin. And this is how they describe the devastating cross-examination of Bankman-Fried, who, again, chose to take the stand in his own defense, despite every expert saying, absolutely never do this. Quote, across the aisle from me, in the section reserved for friends and family, I could see Sam's parents growing increasingly agitated, his mom visibly shaking. 2 rows behind them, I couldn't help but notice author Michael Lewis leaning forward, arms draped over the bench in front of him, with his head down between his arms.
Nobody expects Michael Lewis in the courtroom.
Yeah. And I do actually have, I don't think they're very good people, but I have sympathy for Sam's parents. This is like a nightmare, if like to know that your kid is going to forever prison for, even if it's totally their fault. Michael Lewis just got conned.
my empathy only goes so far, but also like, what a scene. What a fucking scene.
Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah. Can't wait for Jonah Hill to star as Sam Bankman-Fried in the movie based on this.
No, I really don't want that.
No, there's no one I want to see play him in a movie. Just do him like Maris in Frasier. Have him always be off screen.
That would be, that makes me so happy. I love a good, like the parents and Charlie Brown, Heather Sinclair of Degrassi. I could go on.
And fuck it, you know what?
Characters.
Cast David Hyde Pierce as Michael Lewis. Then we got a movie. Then we got a fucking film.
Then we got, I mean, if this whole ordeal results in David Hyde Pierce winning an Oscar for a bad movie.
Absolutely. That's 100%. My dream.
There's no way this movie is good. There's no way it's good.
Yeah.
It's, and it's possible that Adam McKay, in an effort to course correct on having endorsed.
Sure.
Adam
He
McKay, he's
this.
like, he absolutely could, and he would need to course correct on the Michael Lewis in the first place for having directed The Big Short. It's a great move for everyone.
We could make
I'm everyone's agent in this situation.
You're gonna be rich, Jamie.
I'm gonna be fucking rich.
Yeah. In interviews he gave after the book came out and the trial started, Lewis framed his book Going Infinite about Sam Bankman-Fried as a letter to the jury, which is like kind of nonsense, because obviously the jury is never allowed to read a book about the guy that they're going on a trial about. And the judge specifically instructed them not to. There's an interview with 60 Minutes, which is really something. We will hear some clips from it later. But in that interview, Lewis explained, I mean, there's going to be this trial and the lawyers are going to tell 2 stories. And so there's a story war going on in the courtroom. And I think neither one of those stories is as good as the one I have. And like, I on one hand, yes, of course you're right, because you're a better writer than any lawyer is going to be. But on the other hand, this isn't a story. It's just a question of what happened, Michael Lewis. And what happened is massive fraud. And you don't put that in your book.
That's so, I guess I can be of many minds about characterizing it as a story war, because that is like just how history is written. And it's kind of almost refreshing to hear someone refer it to as like, well, whoever could write the better story, will end up having the historical precedent. But interesting that it would be said out loud in that way.
Yeah. And again, I want to reiterate, while Michael is the main character here, he's not a bastard. He's not someone whose like impact on the world has been monstrous. As far as I've ever heard, he's a reasonably nice person. We'll definitely get him being mean at a couple of points here, but it's nothing that I would like call someone like one of history's greatest monster over. But this is Bankman-Fried is a bastard. And so I think talking about the way in which he kind of has Lewis wrapped around his finger and the degree to which Lewis tortures his own logic and prose in order to ignore that is just fascinating. So with that in mind, let's start with a little bit more of Michael's backstory, because that is important to understand why he falls for this. Michael Monroe Lewis was born on October 15th, 1960 in New Orleans. Now, from the beginning, his life was about as far from working class as you get. And to his credit, Lewis does not deny this whenever he's asked.
That's the only thing you can do, I guess.
Yeah, you got to be open about it. Here's him talking to The Guardian. Lewis's family sat at the very top of the WASP aristocracy in New Orleans. I was so inside, he told me. I was literally trained how to sit on a throne when I was 15 years old, because I was crowned the king of the Carnival Ball, an organization that didn't allow black people, didn't allow Jews. I would go from baseball practice to scepter waving lessons. I was born into that world. Being an insider in New Orleans made him feel like an outsider everywhere else, and not always to his disadvantage. And first off, Wow. That's quite a backstory.
Thank you, King.
Thank you, King. I do think I want to point out something here, which is where I don't think he's obfuscating, but I think he's missing something about his own, what his background has done for him, because I'm not going to question him when he says it made him feel like an outsider. But I think it's very clear that this is a guy whose work is defined by his ability to make himself into an insider. And I think that's a big part of why he's able to do that is he grows up in the middle of wealth and power, right? Where it's the air that he breathes. And you don't notice this if like you grow up working class and don't know any super rich people. But when you meet some people who were born crazy rich, you note that like a lot of them have this way of making themselves feel like they belong anywhere, right? It's why they can get away with so much. Like, even if they're totally out of their depth, there's this kind of expectation you get when you grow up hyper rich that the world is going to show you a degree of deference. When you know people who have family fortunes behind them, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like, it's the reason they are never going to get like carded to see if they're a member of a place that's members only, right? Because they have that way about them, and I think that's part of
like
how
an
Lewis
imperceptible thing. Well, and I do think that there is. I mean, and it sounds like what you're getting at is like there is. If you can get someone who grew up in those circumstances on the side of fucking decency, there is a huge value to having someone like that who knows how to navigate those spaces on your side. But if they're, but also, you know, to an extent, and a liability, because you never know, you know. So I'm curious what endears him to our Sam.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So he goes to Princeton University and he graduates cum laude, which means pretty good grades in 1982. His senior thesis is on Donatello, a prominent Ninja Turtle. And when he's in college, he's a member of Princeton's Ivy Club, which is the oldest eating club in the school. Now, if you're not a blue blood, you probably are like, what the fuck is an eating club? These are private dining halls that are also kind of social clubs where upperclassmen go to get nicer food. There's like 9 of them, I think, on campus.
Robert.
And the Ivy Club is the oldest.
At Princeton or like everywhere?
At Princeton. There's other colleges, other fancy boy schools have these.
Robert, this is full cunt. The Ivy Club.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, eating club. Eating club to me is like drive through Taco Bell 1:30 a.m. starving.
Yeah.
Wow, eating club.
Eating
what
club.
Are they eating? What are they eating?
Sophie, you said this is full cunt, but it did not admit women until 1991.
The audacity to not let a woman go full cunt?
Something that cunty, it just doesn't make sense.
And it's also very funny that like, or not funny, but it's noteworthy in this interview, it talks about how he was at the Ivy Club, right? When he talks about, you know, his upbringing, he's like, yeah, this contest I was in, you couldn't be in this club if you were like black or Jewish. He doesn't mention that the Ivy Club doesn't admit women. I think that is maybe interesting. It's also worth noting that the Ivy Club, F. Scott Fitzgerald writes about the Ivy Club and calls it, F. Scott Fitzgerald calls it detached and breathlessly aristocratic. And if F. Scott Fitzgerald says that about your blue blood club, like, my God.
I love that. Wow, what a treat. What a treat. If F. Scott Fitzgerald is the one experiencing like moral clarity about your weird party. Sandwich group, that's challenging.
Now, while Lewis had a passion for art history, he had a bigger passion in life, and it's stacking motherfucking paper. So he goes to the London School of Economics next and eventually joins the bond desk at Salomon Brothers. He's in like the London branch of the Salomon Brothers. No. He's just making dollar bills, y'all.
Robert, dollar bills time is happening now for us as well.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of dollar bills, buy some of these products and we will get dollar bills.
Hey, this is U.S. Olympic gold medalist Tara Davis Woodhull.
And I'm U.S. Paralympic gold medalist Hunter Woodhull.
As athletes, our lives are about having a clear path.
And a team that you can absolutely trust.
So when it came to getting the best mortgage,
we chose PennyMac.
PennyMac is proud to be the official mortgage provider of Team USA and you.
Learn more at pennymac.com. PennyMac Loan Services, LLC, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS ID 35953. Licensed by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation under the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act. Conditions and restrictions may apply.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Tired of spills and stains on your sofa? Wash away your worries with Anabay. Anabay is the only designer sofa that's machine washable inside and out, starting at just $699. Plus, Anabay sofas are pet-friendly, stain-resistant, and feature changeable slip covers and modular pieces. Get up to 60% off site-wide with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Visit WashableSofas.com to get yours now. That's WashableSofas.com. Offers are subject to change, and certain restrictions may apply.
This week on Point Game with me, CJ Toledano, and Isaiah Thomas, it was our special live show, and IT let us know who he thinks would win if they did a 1v1 tournament during All-Star Weekend. Take a listen. Okay, so here's an event, I think, and it's been brought up a bunch that I think could fix All-Star Weekend. One-on-one tournament.
Yeah.
Who do you think is winning that tournament?
Kevin Durant.
Still, right now.
Yeah.
But what about like a smaller guard like yourself?
Yeah, nobody's fucking with me though. That's one thing I do. One-on-one shit, I do that. Yeah. You can ask anybody, any team I've been on after practice, come over and get this ass whooping if you want. Yeah, we're playing ones after every practice.
What, do you have any legendary one-on-one
No,
battles
ask my teammates about the legendary one-on-ones. Don't ask me, they know.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code POINTGAME. New customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly with code POINTGAME. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-78-977-77 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
I have a request for the listeners, which is not something that I often I don't ask anything of our listeners, just that they're happy. But if somebody could please make a dating profile for Michael Lewis as an art graphic, please, for me.
Oh man, okay, that's good. You've got two different requests this week, listeners. One is that propaganda poster, and the other is Michael Lewis dating profile. So. Lewis is, an investment banker for just a few years. Actually, you know who he reminds me of?
Oh, okay. Just dipping your toes in it, then that kind of doesn't count. It's like just the tip of financial crime.
He's in there. At 87, the market crashes, and he makes a pivot away from like doing that as a job, and he writes a book called Liar's Poker about the investment, bank, the stockbroker, that kind of life that makes a shitload of money. Right? We'll talk about it in a second, but like. He reminds me in this trajectory. Do you know anything about Michael Crichton?
Yeah, peaks and valleys. I had no attachment to him, but I know many who do. And the back half of Michael Crichton, pretty fucking brutal.
Yeah, pretty brutal. I'm not talking about like his actual career as a writer as much as Crichton goes to Harvard Medical School and becomes a doctor. Most people I don't think actually know this. But like he was an actual MD, but he doesn't really do the job. Like he gets his MD and then he quits to write books like some of which have a like he's the creator of ER, and he gets criticized some by doctors who are like, oh,
he's the creator of ER?
Yeah, Michael Crichton created ER. Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were talking about Michael Lewis. Yes, I knew Michael.
But
Crichton.
they have they have a similar kind of trajectory where they go to school for this thing. They do like a teeny amount of it, just dip their toes in, and then they get famous writing these books that are inspired by it. Right? I just find that interesting. So, to give you a further idea of Lewis's family background, Liar's Poker, which is semi-autobiographical, revolves around a scene where Michael Lewis is invited to a banquet hosted by the Queen Mother while he's working in London. He gets a seat there because of his cousin, Baroness Linda von Stauffenberg, and she seats him next to the manager of Salomon Brothers, which is how he gets his job.
Word salad.
There is crabs don't have bluer blood than this man. Like that is the bluest you fucking get.
If your cousin's a baroness and you're in your like late 20s, what?
If you know a baroness, you are like
that's okay.
Yeah. So Lewis's depiction of Wall Street guys from Liar's Poker on, because he writes a few books about Wall Street types because he knows them, right? It's generally noted as not being flattering, but I think that's by people who like have a very naive view of what's unflattering, because his Wall Street guys, they curse a lot. They use phrases like big swinging dick. They're like kind of gross, but in a way that's glamorous, right? Like,
I feel like it's like the Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Talking shit. Yeah.
It is a kind of thing where you could say he's not glamorizing it, but he's absolutely making it look a way that makes more greedy young men want to become stock traders. And to extend the Michael Crichton comparison, Liar's Poker is generally agreed to have had a similar impact on its industry to how Jurassic Park influenced paleontology by like bringing a shitload of people in.
Wow. That's really interesting to me because I don't know. I have not read Liar's Poker. To be honest, I have not read any of his books. I have seen some of the adaptations in movies of his books, but yeah, in terms of like anytime someone writes something about Wall Street, like you have to be so fucking careful. And also, even if you are extremely fucking careful, it will still bring in the wrong people who refuse to see the point. Like Wolf of Wall Street is one of my favorite movies, hands down. I think
it's great. It's an
amazing
wonderful
satire.
Film. Yeah.
But it's still like brought people in on the wrong because brain dead people are going to be brain dead people.
We're going in a more serious direction, but if you've read Slaughterhouse-Five, in the opening of it, Vonnegut talks about how when he said, I'm going to write my war book, his wife was like, don't do it. There's no way to do it without making it look cool. Like no one has ever managed to not do it in a way that makes young men think it's cool. And she was right, like for the record. That's one of the problems with even anti-war war fiction is it always makes it look cool because it's cool, right? That doesn't mean it's good. It's like Joe Camel is cool. He still killed 100 million people.
Joe Camel gave my father lung cancer, and I stand by that. And to conjure a similar image, Joe Camel, there's an image that I saw when I worked in the Playboy archives of Joe Camel, an illustrated, gorgeous, like painting essentially of Joe Camel in convertible with smoking hot human women.
Hell yeah.
With big old titties. And you're like, no wonder. This advertisement killed people. This advertisement killed people. Because like you could be this ugly ass camel with women with huge naturals.
Yeah.
Like it just
you can add up all the German generals on the Eastern Front and they didn't kill as many people as that ad.
Truly. Like, and it's a beautiful piece of artwork, but like, let's be fucking honest.
Yeah. So today, Lewis merely acknowledges that the psychos he wrote about in Liar's Poker were more fun on the page than they were in person. This can be, if this is your first book and you write it in 1982 and you realize later, oh, this actually might have made the problem worse. That's not a thing you have any moral culpability for. That's just like writing a thing with good intentions and it turns out badly.
Sure.
But this does become a problem, and one that we can critique as partly a moral problem when it becomes part of a pattern, and it is a pattern with Michael Lewis. The Big Short is obviously not a Wall Street puff piece, but it became beloved by exactly the same people you might assume it was trying to criticize. In that Guardian article I've quoted from, there's a story about Michael Lewis attends this big New York party, and he's like warned ahead of time that it's going to be full of bankers and other finance guys, and he's like, oh, I don't know if they're going to like me, because he had just, not only was The Big Short out, but he just published an article at a major publication attacking Wall Street bigwigs as being greedy idiots, like saying it in very unsparing terms. And one of Lewis's friends later said, quote, but all these former heads of investment banks, all these current bankers, they ran, not walked to the office just to meet him. One hedge fund manager walked in with 15 copies of Lewis's books. Michael signed them all. And again, if you are a journalist, that's a bad sign.
Yeah. What is your take on that? I mean, like, what is the game of chess that I'm not seeing here?
I mean, I think it's just that he makes this look sexy, and it's, if he writes about you, a big part of this is that while he's maybe negative about greed within the overall finance industry, he cannot write about a person without making them look cool, because he has to like them to write about them, right? All these guys in The Big Short, you could say, profited off of a lot of misery. Now, they didn't cause it. They didn't start this subprime loan thing, but they profited off of a lot of misery. And that's at least kind of grimy. But Lewis likes these guys, and he turns them into celebrities because of how good he is at writing about them and making you see what's likable in them, right? And so at this point, because of how often this has happened, he is aware that his books are PR for their subjects. He has a habit now of connecting people he writes about in his books to his PR manager so that they can set up speaking tours for them, right? Because he knows if I put you in a book, that's going to be a big business for you. You're going to be in demand. Yeah, and this is part as a result of him. He can't really be critical about the individuals, right? And this is another quote from that Guardian article. The obverse of Lewis's approach is that he doesn't write about people he can't befriend or about stories that might cost him relationships. Among the few projects he has abandoned is a biography of George Soros, who was so unhappy with Lewis's portrayal of him as a financier rather than an intellectual in a magazine profile that he refused to cooperate. Another is a book about New Orleans, which would have demanded a level of honesty about the city's society and about his family's place in it that might have hurt his parents. He said, I adore my parents. I couldn't write that part while they're alive. And, again, none of this is like unforgivable, but if you're admitting that as a journalist, what aren't you able to admit? And I think in this case, it's that he is not able to look at Sam Bankman-Fried honestly because he found himself taken in by the kid's shtick.
Well, that's what I feel like is one of the complicating factors of, and I don't say this in a way to seem like it's like an unsolvable puzzle, but it's like Michael Lewis writes, it seems like, largely accurate, pieces of journalism.
We'll talk about that.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
So far, right, as someone who's never read his work, but they're also inherently commercial because I feel like there's a journalistic value to explaining why someone is appealing, but there's also an even more commercial value to explaining why someone is appealing because that makes it, that sells books, that sells movie deals, that sells all this shit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's also part of why his stuff is successful in a commercial sense is that is this other fact that like it's always kind of uplifting, right? Again, The Big Short, the whole collapse of the financial industry is dark, but stuff goes well for these characters that you've come to like, right? And Lewis himself has kind of admitted he can't really end on a not upbeat note. He has a lot of trouble with it. He said, quote, once you identify yourself as happy, you're always looking for happiness. And when things come along to grate on that happiness, you find ways to deflect them. You can force the narrative. And I think what he doesn't say there, but what explains his Sam Bankman-Fried book is that once you get in the habit of writing about like these geniuses who are hidden in the middle of systems, right, and see more than everybody else, once you start doing that, you see anybody you start focusing on as that kind of genius, even when they're not. And that's what's happened with Michael here. So, yeah.
Mess.
Yeah.
And it's like, ultimately, 9 times out of 10, the person wearing like fucking X-ray glasses is wearing a pair of fucking IMAX glasses to go see Oppenheimer. Like, it's just embarrassing.
Exactly. It's just embarrassing. And so I think the best example of this before we get into Sam Bankman-Fried, prior in Lewis's history, is a book called The Blind Side, which was published in 2006. Now, The Blind Side, like a lot of Lewis stories, there's a macro and a micro narrative. The macro narrative is he's talking about the explosive growth and the importance of the left tackle in football. This is an offensive lineman whose job is basically to make sure the quarterback doesn't get maimed. The micro story, which contains the emotional heart of the book and is the core of the narrative, is the tale of a guy named Michael Oher, who was he was placed in foster care at age 7 because his mother suffered from addiction. His dad was generally in prison. His dad dies while he's, I think, in high school. Or was dealt a pretty tough hand in life, but he's also 6'6" and very fast, right? So he is someone who like shows an aptitude for football. As a result of this, he's kind of coaxed through getting into a private school, and he gets literally adopted by this rich white family. Oher's a black man, black child at this time, and they make it their business to coach him and coax him in through getting through the academics so that he can be in the NCAA in college, so that he can get an NFL contract, right?
So I'll be perfectly honest. Before we started, before you told me that Michael Lewis was a main character, I did not know that he wrote The Blind Side.
Oh, yes, he did, because this becomes a movie that's huge, right?
And I am very well acquainted with the ensuing nasty fucking cultural narrative associated with the movie, but I didn't realize that it was a book. I knew Liar's Poker, Moneyball, and The Big Short. Holy fuck.
Also, Robert, I just want to fact check real quick. He wasn't adopted by them.
Not, we're getting to that.
Okay,
that was the narrative in The Blind Side, right?
Right.
That they have basically adoped this guy. Yes, you are correct, Sophie. But I'm building to that.
Okay,
so okay. That's I just like I don't know why I didn't know that. And also, I'm like, who didn't want me to know that Michael Lewis wrote The Blind Side, a book that is famously bullshit.
Yeah. So this family adopts Oher, and they effectively adopt him, is I think generally how it's framed, and they help him get through high school, get into a college, and kind of like help usher him into this NFL career where he makes a significant amount of money, obviously. And I'm going to quote from the LA Times here. The administration at his high school accepts him, although he can barely read. He secures a full-time tutor. When his grade point average still proves too low for the NCAA, his adoptive father, a canny former college basketball standout named Sean Toohey, manages to find a crucial loophole. He has Oher tested to prove that he's learning disabled, then has him take numerous easy online courses. Lewis treats these measures as ingenious. We are meant to cheer the fact that Oher has gamed the educational process. And this is from the book. Leanne, who's the wife of Sean, was now making it her personal responsibility to introduce him to the most basic facts of life, the sort of thing any normal person would have learned by osmosis. Every day I try to make sure he knows something he doesn't know, she said. If you ask him, where should I shop for a girl to impress her? He'll tell you Tiffany's. If I'll go through the whole golf game. He can tell you what 6 under is, and what's a birdie, and what's par. I love that those are her two examples of basic knowledge.
This is Sandra Bullock's Oscar talking. This is Sandra Bullock's Oscar flapping its nasty little mouth. Okay.
Two things every boy needs to know: where to buy jewelry and how to golf works. Really says a lot about her socioeconomic status, right? Not like, here's how you pay your taxes. Not like, literally anything else. Like, here's how you cook eggs. But no, fucking golf and Tiffany's.
Well, yeah, and also, like, I mean, to state the obvious, like, conflating that with, like, this is what normal people do.
This is normal,
like, you
basic
could write a
life
fucking
advice.
doctoral thesis in the ways that is,
okay,
like,
great.
bullshit.
Yeah. So we can all see the potential abusive issue with a wealthy white family adopting a teenaged black boy to coach him into launching a pro football career, right? Just if you think about all of the head injuries and shit involved, there's a lot that's problematic here.
Yeah.
Lewis does quote Leanne at one point as saying, with me and Sean, I can see him thinking, if they found me lying in a gutter and I was going to be flipping burgers at McDonald's, would they really have had an interest at me? But the book is ultimately positive and uplifting. We're left thinking how nice it is that these people helped this kid out. The LA Times note that Lewis seems to be like amused at these rich people cheating the system to usher this kid into a dangerous job without like educating him. So the nice parts of the story ended earlier this year when a now retired Oher filed a lawsuit in a Tennessee court alleging that the Twohies never adopted him and instead created a conservatorship. Twohies, I don't care. Fuck them. And instead created a conservatorship and used it to take his money, right? The Twohies, or whatever the fuck, deny doing this.
It's also Leanne.
I'm sorry, I think it's pronounced it's actually pronounced the peepees.
I don't care. The dick bags
pee-pee.
deny this. And again, I'm not being a non-biased journalist here, but fuck it.
Robert, it's actually Dickmans. It's
Dickmans. The Dickmans. They call his claims hateful and absurd. Michael Lewis has defended the Twohies by saying that they only earned a few $100,000 off of The Blind Side, the book, and the movie that was made off of it. He's like, they didn't make millions. They only made a few $100,000. Now, Lewis also does, and I'll give him this, he also admits right after saying that the Twohies' biological daughter is married to the son of the main investor in the film, which might suggest that the family made a lot more money off of it, right? That might suggest that
back end
because the Blind Side makes $500 million on a $35 million budget. In his
what happens
own
to Michael Lewis in this kind
Michael Lewis is super rich and always will be.
There's been
buried some leads.
There's been so many articles about this. Like
there's
everywhere.
some shady shit.
That's the first time I'm hearing about the daughter's marriage because I read a fair amount about that case.
Fun stuff. So in his own 2011 book, Oher expresses issues with the movie based off of Lewis's book. Primarily, there's this part where the Twohies are teaching him how to play football, and he's like, I knew football before I met them. I'm a teenager in America. Like what are you fucking talking about? There are other problematic moments in the book, and this is from The Guardian again. Lewis calls Oher Big Mike throughout it, despite the fact that Oher is open about hating that nickname. He also tells this guy's story almost exclusively through the words of other people talking about him, even though he had access to Oher. Lewis justifies this by saying that Oher was not a strong voice on his life. Yeah, this guy's not good at talking about himself. I'm just going to listen to everyone else about him.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I
think what's really going on here is that Oher is a black kid from a desperate poverty background, right? And Lewis cannot identify or get inside of his head because that is nothing that even resembles the Michael Lewis story.
It feels like a very privileged, dark take on who do I consider to be a credible voice? Can I get 20 white people who barely know this guy,
who just met this kid to profit off him,
to speak to him better than he can speak to his own life? Because that's who I trust is white people. That's that's so fucking gross.
So he doesn't try to get inside Oher's head, and he just focuses most of the narrative on the Twohies, who Lewis understands. This is the final shoe. He understands them for a very good reason, and I'm going to quote from the LA Times here. As I tore through the book, I kept wondering how Lewis got such remarkable access to the Twohies, and I also wondered, why does he take such an uncritical view of their role? The author's note at the end provides the obvious explanation, stating that Lewis is a friend of Sean Twohies and that they had been longtime classmates at the same New Orleans school.
No. How is it even ethical to take this fucking story on if you have...
There's only one kind of ethics that I care about, Jamie, and it's dollar fucking bills.
Well, Jamie, as you know, things could be unethical but still be legal.
Legal. That's how he lives his life.
I mean, truly, what a gift that we have funny. As the I am a force of evil in the world, certainly. Yeah. But I am grateful that he gave us that one thing, just the way of describing juvenile lawless capitalists.
Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah. Now, one thing I have started to notice, watching some of the more recent and critical interviews with Lewis after the SBF book, is that while he's generally a pretty friendly-seeming guy, he starts to get really angry the instant you question him on anything regarding one of his stories. And you see this in this story, in the Oher story, because Oher's former coach comes out and defends the Twohies or whatever once the lawsuit goes out. He's like, I don't think they took advantage of him, basically. And Oher calls it brave.
In my professional, unbiased opinion,
fuck
Oher,
you.
Yeah.
Lewis calls the coach brave for doing this and basically says he's taking a stand against cancel culture. And then here's The Guardian again. Lewis recalled Oher as a shy young boy and found it hard to square that memory with the Oher behind the lawsuit. What we're watching is a change of behavior, he told me. This is what happens to football players who get hit in the head. They run into problems with violence and aggression. It wouldn't surprise him, Lewis said, if we were seeing some confluence of Oher's history in football with other campaigns that stoke claims and lawsuits like his. Perhaps some lawyer of Oher's figured the time was ripe to sue the Twohies, Lewis speculated. Or perhaps Oher realized that people would get behind him if he makes these accusations. He's just a poor head-injured boy. Yeah.
They're like, no, the perceived exploitation and racism you experienced was the result of CTE. That's
it's fucking
disgusting.
wild, right? That's gross as hell.
Oh,
now,
I hate
Jamie.
him. Wow. I just thought he was the guy who wrote Moneyball. I thought that was the harm
that
he
is what
inflicted
I was
on me.
thinking too. Now,
Wow.
So here I want you to keep in mind how he wrote about his former subject, Oher. Now, here's him talking in a 60 Minutes interview about Sam Bankman-Fried, the now convicted former billionaire. And I really want to emphasize the contrast between how he writes about these two different people who are subjects of his books.
Mm-hmm. The story of Sam's life is people not understanding him, misreading him. He's so different. He's so unusual. I mean, I think in a funny way that the reason I have such a compelling story is I have a character that I do come to know and that the reader comes to know that the world still doesn't know.
Now, that is not the case. Sam Bankman-Fried is exactly the person he appears to be on the surface, right? He is a guy who committed a bunch of financial crimes and didn't get away with it because he was too lazy and undisciplined to do it the smart way, right? That's all that's going on.
I mean, this is like, this is a bummer. This is like a case study and a journalist biases coming out in their work.
It's so obvious.
Yeah.
Now, no story better illustrates this part of the story than how Lewis wound up writing Going Infinite in the first place. In 2014, Lewis published a book called Flash Boys, which is a book about Brad Katsuyama and a small group of rebel Wall Street investors who form IEX, which is like a stock exchange that's supposed to, the idea is we want to protect investors from the unfair advantages that these high-frequency trading firms have on traditional exchanges due to like a whole bunch of shit, but largely access to a special fiber optic cable. And with most Lewis books, there's a lot of insiders that will criticize him for getting some details wrong here and glossing over some issues that don't conform to his narrative. There's like a market crash that's largely like mitigated by some of these firms that he's criticizing, but I don't know enough about that to want to get into it. What's important is that Katsuyama and his book of rogue traders are depicted semi-heroically, as if they're kind of fighting against this rigged financial system, which, the financial system's rigged. I don't know about his characterization of them, but the book is a hit and it makes Katsuyama and his crew celebrities within the finance world. So Katsuyama reaches out to Lewis when he is considering an institutional investment in FTX. He's like, we're considering getting into crypto through these guys, putting a lot of money on their exchange. Would you look into this guy for me? Right? Mm-hmm. And this is what Lewis says. Lewis like basically goes in there and like talks to Sam Bankman-Fried, and he's so impressed that he quotes himself as telling Katsuyama, do whatever he wants to do. What could possibly go wrong? Right? That's which bad bet. Katsuyama does wind up putting money in.
Choose a worse person to ask what could go wrong with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to continue from The Guardian here.
Okay.
He did find himself intrigued in particular by effective altruism, the movement to which Bankman-Fried subscribed. Effective altruists believe in giving away most of what they make to do the most good in the world. Some of them commit to earning as much as possible so as to donate more to their chosen beneficiaries. Having spent so long on Wall Street, Lewis wasn't used to meeting a wealthy young man who claimed to have no interest in wealth. Unusually for Lewis, he couldn't figure Bankman-Fried out. Michael just said, "This kid is the richest and most interesting young person I've ever met."
Oh
he
my
didn't
God.
claim to understand all the deep recesses of Bankman-Fried's mind, but he knew it was a great story. And this was before the shit hit the fan.
So
that's one of his friends
like,
talking. Yeah.
And also it takes someone who grew up in that environment to not have alarm bells going off in their mind when they hear, oh, I, as someone who has never not had money, don't really care about money. You're like, well, yeah, no shit. You've never not had it. You would really care if you never. That reminds me of, this is like, I think about this easily once a week. It happened over 10 years ago. My freshman year of college, it was my first time really encountering people who like grew up with like money, and there was this guy on my floor, and one night everyone was hanging out and he like this is the era, this is the early 2010s. He put a skinny scarf around my neck because it was cold. And he was like, you can have that. And it smelled and I didn't want it. But he's like, you can have that. And I was like, oh, don't you like want it back? And he's like, no, I don't care about my material possessions. And
great.
I think about that all the time because he could just get 9,000 scarves. He
Yeah.
could just get 9,000 scarves. But that was like, but I feel like that is so much of what effective altruism is. It's just a fundamental, like, not understanding how the world works.
Yeah, it's a bunch of rich kids who are talking through like fucking philosophy 101 level shit and so impressed by everyone else's answers to like dumb logic puzzles because they've never studied enough humanities to know that like, no, man, people have been talking about this shit for thousands of years and all of their takes are better than yours. Like, anyway, we're not getting into that as much right now. We are about to get into the ads. And if you really want to do some effective altruism, purchase from the sponsors of this podcast.
Hey, this is U.S. Olympic gold medalist Tara Davis Woodhull.
And I'm U.S. Paralympic gold medalist Hunter Woodhull.
As athletes, our lives are about having a clear path.
And a team that you can absolutely trust.
So when it came to getting the best mortgage,
we chose PennyMac.
PennyMac is proud to be the official mortgage provider of Team USA and you.
Learn more at pennymac.com. PennyMac Loan Services, LLC, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS ID 35953. Licensed by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation under the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act. Conditions and restrictions may apply.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year. You can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Tired of spills and stains on your sofa? Wash away your worries with Anabay. Anabay is the only machine washable sofa inside and out, where designer quality meets budget-friendly prices. That's right, sofas start at just $699. Enjoy a no-risk experience with pet-friendly, stain-resistant, and changeable slip covers made with performance fabric. Experience cloud-like comfort with high-resilience foam that's hypoallergenic and never needs fluffing. The sturdy steel frame ensures longevity, and the modular pieces can be rearranged anytime. Shop WashableSofas.com for up to 60% off site-wide, backed by a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. If you're not absolutely in love, send it back for a full refund. No return shipping or restocking fees. Every penny back. Upgrade now at WashableSofas.com. Offers are subject to change, and certain restrictions may apply.
Flag football is exploding, and iFlag is leading the way. As the Guinness World Record holder, iFlag hosts premier flag football tournaments nationwide for boys, girls, high school girls, and adults. From first-time players to elite competitors, iFlag delivers top-level competition, unforgettable experiences, and a community built around the game. Ready to be part of it? Join the movement. Find your tournament and learn more at iflag.org. That's iflag.org.
So we've been talking around the book Going Infinite, which is Michael's terrible book on Sam. So I think now is probably a good time to dig into exactly how it fails. I wanted to start by introducing that contrast between Lewis's treatment of Oher and SBF first, because it puts things into perspective. Now, I think a good anecdote to start on here is one of the stories Lewis uses to introduce Sam to the reader. This is right at the start of Going Infinite, and it's about a phone call that Sam has during his billionaire era with fashion industry icon Anna Wintour. before the Met Gala.
No.
Now, oh yeah, Jamie, this is good. So for
I'm
reference,
exhausted because Anna Wintour is Bill Nighy's girlfriend right now, and I don't want to think poorly of Bill Nighy. That's hard for me.
It is tragic. I my heart goes out to Bill Nighy, who I'm incapable of feeling badly about.
No, I'm here. I'm sitting my ass down and listening.
Yeah. So Anna is who Meryl Streep's character in The Devil Wears Prada is based on, right?
Yeah.
Like that's who this person is.
Oh, I love when men try to explain what The Devil Wears Prada is about. Yes, for all the men listening, pause and go watch The Devil Wears Prada. It is just like one of the greatest films of, I think, one of the greatest comedy films and books of our
very
generation.
Very good movie.
Half the essays I wrote.
Classic.
Half the essays I wrote in college were based off of said book.
Really?
So,
Yeah.
The Met Gala is an annual event. I think Vogue puts it on technically, but like it's where rich, famous, and occasionally even beautiful people wear insane outfits that cost the GDP of a small island nation, right?
Yes. And then a bunch of YouTubers I watch say that they looked ugly.
Yes.
It's a treat.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. Everybody makes a feast off of it, but somebody has to pay for the son of a bitch, right? And that year, Wintour wanted SBF to pay for the gala, right? And he was spending way more money on stupider shit than that. So not unreasonable that he might actually agree to do this. He had instructed at this point his publicity woman to do whatever she could to increase FTX's reputation and keep his name in the news. So not a bad way to do that, right? The Met Gala often does make the news. And when it came to his side of the job, though, he put as much work into like this call with Anna Wintour, where tens of millions of dollars are on the line, that he did to like everything else that he had a meeting about, which is no work at all, right? Lewis goes into detail about the fact that he's playing this dumb video game, like while he's on a Zoom call with her. It's the same game he's always playing. It's this video game that he winds up buying because it's made by a friend of his called Storybook Brawl.
What is it about? Tell me.
It's about like Fable characters fighting, right? Like it's a little strategy game. It's like an app game. It's not a real game. You know
how you watch those videos, and I say this with love and appreciation of like college students now playing a video game while explaining like Marxism to you.
Yes,
and,
yes.
I want that, but Sam Bankman-Fried playing that game while Anna Wintour is like, what is he up to? What is he up to?
The Jamie and I in unison when you said playing video game while talking to Anna Wintour.
Yeah.
Mouth wide open, like.
Well, it's like she could. I mean, and not even to like endorse her. I'm just like, I would be very afraid to do anything in front of her.
Scary.
Well, and
she's famously scary.
She's famously scary, and he's talking about a lot of money, right? Like it's not that he's blowing her off, because like I don't feel precious about Anna Wintour's time, but like it's that this is a big money deal, and he can't focus on it. And I would take that as just like, okay, this is a dude who has some ADHD, right? Like that's what that is. And this is a dude who has ADHD who's part of a generation that has ADHD.
Well, no, this is a very dumb observation, but it's also clear to me that Sam Bankman-Fried has never seen The Devil Wears Prada, which I've never been less surprised at. But it's like, if you have no one in your life who could tip you off that you're talking to the protagonist of The Devil Wears Prada, then you lack a support structure in a fundamental way, I think.
Yeah. It's okay. That's good to know.
That's why Sophie and I are here. Robert.
What's funny about the way Lewis talks about this is that he marvels at this, right? Like it's the most amazing thing. And it's evidence of how unique Sam is. When you just noted one of the biggest pieces of entertainment for millennials and Gen Z is people playing video games and explaining politics, right? It is not at all unique that Sam Bankman-Fried will not stop gaming to have a business meeting, but Michael Lewis treats it as like, this is evidence that he is too much of a genius. He can't bear to pay attention to her for a second. He also, there's a little bit of anti-woman stuff in here because Lewis notes Sam would minimize the window with her face on it whenever she spoke and bring it back up whenever he talked, right? Curiously, only when he was talking did he want to see her, which I do think there's a lot in that sentence. So
exhausting.
Yeah, it is. again, like the way Lewis describes this isn't just, he's not very disciplined, and he has the same thing that like a lot of millennial and Gen Z people have, which is, an inability to stop distracting yourself no matter what important shit you're doing. He describes this as SBF's brain being so big that like he's like a Sherlock Holmes character and games are his heroin, right?
Well, that indicates to me that Michael Lewis, because that's the way that you're like your doting parent would talk about you. And like that is clear to me. The way he sees him is like, wow, look at this amazing kid. And also what SBF is doing here is like the inverse of what most easily distracted millennial and Gen Z people are doing. They're playing games and explaining radical politics to you. They're not playing games and talking to some like half listening to someone before they part with millions of dollars to throw the world's stupidest annual party.
Yeah.
And I love that stupid ass party.
It's. I mean, I think both of those things are on a similar level potentially, but it depends on how you do them. And he's not actually good at it. But the way Lewis describes this is he just is in awe of this kid's ability to have attention deficit disorder. Quote, "Yeah, absolutely," said Sam, but his mind was elsewhere. The Horde Dragon was dead. Anna Wintour had killed it. What to do? He made a half-hearted bid to begin another game and pick another hero, but then changed his mind and shut the game down. He could often occupy two worlds at once and win in both. In this case, he clearly stood no chance of winning in one world unless he paid less attention in the other. And this woman somehow had acquired a spell that interfered with his abilities to multitask. What an amazing way to write that paragraph, Michael Lewis.
Dude.
Oh, God.
Dude.
It's something else. Like, I have played video games through some important work meetings. Sophie has often had to pick my ass up off that. It's not because I'm a genius. It's because I'm hungover and have trouble focusing because I use Twitter too much.
There's so many, I mean, whatever. And also you have to imagine that this manuscript made it through a lot. It speaks to how old people in general who work in the publishing industry are, that no one was like, Michael, I hate to tell you that this is just how kids are these days.
He's a real video game genius. Yeah.
It's like we've both written books. Like I was surprised that I got the title of my book through, but it was because people over 60 don't know what raw dog means.
No.
And so that's most of the people in publishing. Like, it's ridiculous. That's so nuts that made it to the final book.
No, so if you're not reading critically and inclined to give Lewis the benefit of the doubt, I can see how you might assume that like he's trying to make Sam look kind of silly in that paragraph. I can see how you would assume that based on the text, but that is not what's going on, listener. Here is Lewis talking about that exact same moment in an interview with Intelligence Squared from about a month ago.
Yay.
So on the screen, Zoom, Anna Wintour. And he does not know who she is. He doesn't know what the purpose of the meeting is. He doesn't know, the purpose of the meeting is, can Sam Bankman-Fried pay for the whole Met Gala? That's the purpose of the meeting. Because he'll pay for everything else. Why not that? And she comes on the screen and she is dressed to the nines. She's got those sighs of hair coming down around her chin.
What she's like.
She's like ready to kill. And gorgeous. She looks great. She's well prepared. He's playing Storybook Brawl, which is his video game.
Pause. I hate the way he talks about Anna Wintour. Thank you very much.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
We can deal with that in private. So
before we can talk about a woman on a Zoom call, does she look gorgeous or not?
That's the point. This has nothing to do with Anna Wintour. Also, she looks like that all the time. Thank you so much. It's her thing.
And whenever she comes on the screen, he blacks her out and the video game pops up. So like she's talking and minotaurs are killing dwarfs and trees with axes are coming in and weapons are appearing on the screen and people are dying and exploding and you're hearing her talk about the Met Gala. And they're 7 minutes in when he hits a button and the Wikipedia entry for the Met Gala comes up so he can figure out what the hell she's talking about. And I watched him do this. He's doing this with her. This is what he was doing on live television when he would be interviewed by Bloomberg TV. It was like he had tricks. It took him about 1/10 of his brain to have a conversation with Anna Wintour. And what he would do, the other part of his brain was either reading about who she was or playing his game. And what he'd do is he'd say, you ask me a question. He'd say, oh, that's a really good question. It's a really good question. Let me think about that for a minute. Meanwhile, the Minotaur is killing the tree, and then he comes off, and then he thinks for a minute, and he says some boilerplate thing.
So that does not show genius. He's obviously, the smile on his face, that is not him being critical. That's him thinking about, that's him fawning over this kid for not being prepared for a multi-million-dollar meeting, right? Which is fine, but that's not an example of him being smart.
And I think that is a clear pattern in the way that we cover the young white kid genius who comes from a rich background. There's a lot of similarities in how early Mark Zuckerberg's casual misogyny and not giving a shit about people was part and parcel to why he was cool and why he was seen as a visionary. That the same is true of I feel like every generation has at least one of these guys, and they're all covered in the same way, and no one ever learns their lesson because the guy covering them is often the same guy.
It's Michael Lewis.
That guy's dad.
It's literally Michael Lewis.
And often literally Michael Lewis.
How did okay, I'm sorry. How did this resolve with Anna Wintour? Did she the fact that she didn't?
He said basically he says, "Yeah, I'll pay for it," and then he just ghosts her.
Yeah, so the fact that Anna Wintour didn't smoke out that he was fully a fraud. The girlies are disappointed.
I'm not caping for Anna Wintour here, but
famously named the Dragon Lady. Well, no.
SBF is lucky that he'll never encounter Bill Nighy, because for Bill Nighy it would be on site.
Oh, Bill Nighy would fuck him up.
It would be on site.
Yeah.
So
he was in I, Frankenstein, for crying. He was in Detective Pikachu.
He was in a lot of great
films. This episode has broken my brain.
So
my brain is broken.
These are amusing anecdotes, right? What he's telling potentially, if you are someone who is critical about him, that same anecdote could form part of your thesis about why this kid got away with it and for so long, and why he ultimately flamed out. But Lewis is convinced that these show you evidence of Sam's genius. And he sets this up early in the book, talking about Sam's childhood. Quote, "He had a fault line inside him. Pressure was building on it. And one day, in the 7th grade, he slipped. His mother returned from work to find Sam alone, in despair. I came home and he was crying," recalled Barbara. "He said, 'I'm so bored, I'm going to die.'" And I have had a similar conversation with my mom, and it's a sign, certainly Sam has been diagnosed with ADHD. That's certainly one way in which that can manifest.
I'm sorry. Hold on. One for the girlies again. That is a direct quote from Sex and the City.
Oh, okay.
That is a direct quote from a Sex and the City episode.
Sure. I'm sure Sam's a big Samantha head.
Wait, who says it?
The woman, she goes, "I'm so bored I could die," and she jumps out and she falls out of the window.
Oh my God! Yes, it's literally one of the most famous moments in the back half of
Sex and the City.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Anyway, so because Lewis again, if you're just kind of being honest about Sam and writing a book, you might be like, well, Sam gets diagnosed with ADHD. This moment makes total sense as this is a kid who's got ADHD, and he's also good at math and stuff. He's bored in the classes that he's in. But Lewis does not acknowledge that Sam has ADHD in his book. He doesn't say anything about it, because that's not a bad thing, obviously, but it's also that you're not a genius just because you have ADHD, right? Plenty of people who are not super geniuses have ADHD. It's just a thing. And
it's if you're talking about that behavior, and I want to be delicate in the way I talk about it, but it's it's contextually important.
Mm-hmm. If you proceed from the principle, this is a kid with ADHD, then there's another explanation for his addiction to games, his inability to focus on stuff, right? And and then it means those things aren't a sign of his brilliance, right? Now, part of why I'm critical of Michael for this is that he does make a note about one character's ADHD in the book, and it's Carolyn Ellison, who comes across as one of the villains in the book. And I should note that the following paragraph comes from a part of the book where Lewis is talking to George, who is a therapist who worked for FTX as the company shrink. So, among other things, this is a therapist talking about his patient, right?
Okay.
When she'd first come to him back in 2018, she'd had 2 issues she wanted to talk about: her attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and her new and emotionally complicated polyamorous lifestyle. Every subsequent session after the first, Carolyn came back with just one issue she wanted to discuss: Sam. She'd fallen in love with Sam. Sam didn't love her back, and that fact alone left her deeply unhappy. I thought of her as an exception, said George. I thought she might be willing to trade effective altruism for reciprocation of love any day. Right?
Sorry, how is it I truly, how is it even legal or ethical for this information to be
I don't actually know. I don't
actually
know, Jamie.
Because it's
that does seem sketchy to me.
Therapists are not supposed to be able to do, they're famously not supposed to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And also, not to overly come to her defense, but also it's if anyone's therapy logs were leaked, it would be they had this fixation on this issue. Well, that's why you fucking go, dude. You don't go there to be a reasoned person.
No, and especially since what's messy to me is that he makes sure to bring this up with Carolyn because he's kind of writing that she was unreliable, she wasn't focusing enough, she was in love with him.
She was being hysterical, perhaps.
Whereas he's just this misunderstood genius, but he notes her ADHD and he doesn't note Sam's, even though Sam's ADHD is a matter of public fucking record now. His family went to court to get him his medicine.
Well, it's not
this is not a hidden thing.
It's not even something that he particularly tries to obscure, right?
No.
Yeah.
And again, it's critical to understand him because it provides an alternate explanation for all this behavior that Lewis chalks up to him just only needing 10% of his brain to talk to people.
Yeah.
Now, there's another very fun bit in this, which kind of relates to that, which is that, and this is the weirdest through line in Going Infinite, which is Michael Lewis does not understand games. Right? He writes about video games and board games and other popular nerd pastimes that are now the dominant form of entertainment by money in our country. He talks about them like he's an alien who's just arrived on the planet. And as a result, he talks about Sam's embrace of this stuff at the expense of everything else to be evidence of brilliance. Quote, "He felt nothing in the presence of art. He found religion absurd. He thought both right-wing and left-wing political opinions kind of dumb, less a consequence of thought than of their holder's tribal identity. He and his family ignored the rituals that punctuated most people's existence. He didn't even celebrate his own birthday. What gave pleasure and solace and a sense of belonging to others left Sam cold. When the Bankman-Frieds traveled to Europe, Sam realized that he was just staring at a lot of old buildings for no particular reason. We did a few trips, he said. I basically hated it. To his unrelenting alienation, there was only one exception: games. In 6th grade, Sam learned about a game called Magic the Gathering. For the next 4 years, it was the only activity that consumed him faster than he could consume it." And this is so funny because Lewis has to describe Magic the Gathering after this point, and he describes it basically. It's the first game ever made where the way that you play it, it's different. Every character can come into this strategy game with a different set of equipment. No one had ever done this before. It was all like chess where everyone's the same. And it's no, it wasn't. There were decades of war games and strategy games that Magic was influenced by. That's just wrong, Michael Lewis.
Now hold on, nerd. Hold on,
Magic.
Nerd.
Yeah.
Hold on, nerd. Any put a pin in that, nerd. I do think that this is because I don't play Magic the Gathering, and I know that how he's describing it is wildly incorrect. I feel
it's so wrong. Yeah,
I think that speaks more to a generation gap, because I think that there's someone who could be on the opposite side of SBF and equally with it. It's just do your research. Just talk to someone who plays Magic the Gathering. They famously love to talk about it.
And it's funny because he's he has to make this he goes on a limb about Sam Bankman-Fried didn't like chess. It was too boring. There were too few possibilities. You could calculate every his computer brain wasn't amused by chess.
only
magic
possibility
could keep
wasn't
him-
enough for him.
Yeah, it's so funny.
God.
It's like, man, my friends and I all played Magic the Gathering. And like, as a spoiler, some people looked into Sam's like performance in League of Legends and the other online. He was never good at anything. He was not very good. He wasn't particularly bad, but he was not very good. And I'm going to guess he was indifferent at Magic the Gathering because it is not a great, it's a wonderful game, not a great like yardstick for your intelligence. You know, it's just a card game.
Like, no one should be no one should be judged by their intelligence by how they interact with like a beloved hobby. That's weird.
Yeah, it's so weird. And it's like, it's interesting because like Sam's parents, a big part of this section is like, he comes home and he's like, I'm so bored. I want to die. And his parents do what I think is the right thing. They lead the charge to get their school to add like an advanced math class. And it seems to have a good impact on him. He's excited to go to school now. And that's a good thing. But what we find hints of in parts of this story, and I don't think Lewis is either knows it or is able to admit it to himself, is the troubling fact that once Sam's parents decide he's a math genius, they don't bother to make him into a well-rounded person. Sam grows up hating art. He thinks books are useless. He has this big rant he goes about like, well, there's no way that Shakespeare's the best author ever because there have been this many billion people born since he was alive. And if you want to calculate the odds that none of them were better at writing than him, then there's really no reason to read Shakespeare. And it's like, well, Sam, the fact that you think that means that like no one even casually tried to teach you the humanities, because like the reason you should study Shakespeare is not that he's the quote unquote best author ever. That doesn't exist. It's that there is not a day in your life or the life of anyone that you love that they don't use words and phrases Shakespeare introduced to the English language. That's why he's important.
And don't get me wrong, Sam. I also don't want to read a book, but
Sometimes that's just what you need to do to understand the world and not go to prison for forever because you're a gambler.
Or just be willing to fucking Google your way around it. Like, you're not better than Shakespeare, you fucking weirdo. There is like an element of like, there are certain the lower side of SBF L's that he takes in the statements he makes. He sounds like a one episode Frasier character.
Yes.
You know, he sounds like Freddie made a friend and he fucking sucks.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, and then he even polarizes Frasier and Niles, and that's how you know you're in fucking trouble.
Yeah. When Niles is like, this kid's kind of got a fucking problem.
This kid's incomprehensible.
Yeah.
I wouldn't share a glass of brandy with him.
Yeah, and man, if you know Niles, you know what that takes. Hey everyone, Robert here. Just wanted a quick note that the last 5 or 6 minutes of this episode is all Frasier. It's all Frasier talk. Jamie and I got off on a tangent. There is a lot more Sam Bankman-Fried in part 2. It's another hour and 20 minutes. So plenty more on Thursday. But as a heads up, in case it's kind of confusing, we just wound up in a Frasier hole after this point. So if you want to hear us talk about Frasier, this is your chance. Speaking of David Hyde Pierce, Jamie Loftus.
Yes.
You are starring in a floor show with David Hyde Pierce.
I sure am.
Based on the life of Kelsey Grammer, actually. You are playing Kelsey. You spent, like Michael Lewis, a full year living with him to really get his character down. What was that like?
Look, it was pretty hostile. And in the subsequent publishings that I've made, a lot of people have said that I couldn't explain the video games that Kelsey Grammer was playing for the year that I was following him around. And I resent that. I was in the room with Kelsey while he was berating women on the phone. And I think that makes him a genius. I think that makes him a genius. And, do I believe he's the greatest sitcom actor of all time? Well, I'll keep that to myself, but wink, wink. I think that he's kind of a beautiful genius and is above criticism. And if you don't think that he's kind of the perfect person, or if you even just read his Wikipedia page and form an opinion, I beg to disagree. And
man, I love Kelsey Grammer stories from the height of Frasier because they're all members of the cast being like, Well, yeah, he was very, he came on set and he had clearly just woken up after vomiting up his 7-martini lunch. He looked like he was dying. We were all worried that he was going to drop dead that day. And then the director called action and he was immediately in character.
He was
and did the
Frasier.
he was perfect.
He was beautiful. His chest hair perked. Yeah. We'll never know. I was fixated on Frasier reruns when I was a kid. I would stay up late to watch them.
Yeah, it's one of my comfort shows for sure. Yeah.
The best. And when I remember getting Kelsey Grammer's memoir from the library and read that he broke up with his wife on the phone. And it may have been one of the first times that I was like, wow. Men are scary.
Yeah.
You can just do that. You could just be Kelsey Grammer and be evil, and then I will still base my sexuality on you forever.
Sure, absolutely.
Doesn't seem fair.
Whomst among us, right?
I know.
Oh man, but I will say, having watched the new Frasier show, it becomes very clear how much of that show's charm was John Mahoney and David Hyde Pierce.
Well, I think Kelsey's doing. I mean, and he's an evil person. He's doing his damn best.
He is perfect. He is literally his voice has not changed in 20 years, which is remarkable.
No, and he's been physically preserved well enough.
Yes, yeah. One of the big problems that show has is they've cast that kid as Niles and Daphne's son, and they're relying on him to hold up a lot of the physical comedy end that David Hyde Pierce used to. And if you are going up next to David Hyde Pierce in a physical comedy competition, you're gonna look like shit.
Good fucking luck, my man.
He's David Hyde Pierce.
Fucking luck. Yeah. He's the guy. Robert, I thought you would love the Frasier reboot because it's some of the most abysmal Boston accents I've ever heard in my fucking life.
Don't get me wrong. I've watched every episode, Jamie.
Some of the nastiest little. I have to pause sometimes and get a glass of water.
Yeah,
I have to walk off some of the accents. Yeah. I mean, you have, I have conceded long ago that you've got it down.
Thank you. Well, anything to plug, Jamie, after our 5-minute Frasier digression?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to. I guess I'd like to plug the Frasier reboot because I would like a second season.
Yeah, check it out, everybody. It's not shit.
It's on Paramount Plus. And I also just read Raw Dog and follow me online if you're so inclined. And that's all I have to say. Listen to the Bechtel cast while you're at it. Why not?
Yeah. All right.
What about you?
That's it. I'm done.
You're
go
done.
Figure out where David Hyde Pierce lives.
Don't
send
do
him
that.
A letter. Send him a nice letter.
I wonder if I can walk there. Bye.
Yeah, you might be able to. Let Jamie know.
Hey, this is U.S. Olympic gold medalist Tara Davis Woodhull.
And I'm U.S. Paralympic gold medalist Hunter Woodhull.
As athletes, our lives are about having a clear path.
And a team that you can absolutely trust.
So when it came to getting the best mortgage,
we chose PennyMac.
PennyMac is proud to be the official mortgage provider of Team USA and you.
Learn more at pennymac.com. PennyMac Loan Services, LLC, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS ID 35953. Licensed by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation under the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act. Conditions and restrictions may apply.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Sink into affordable luxury. Anabay is the only machine-washable sofa, inside and out. With stain-resistant slip covers and a cloud-like frame duvet, everything goes right in the wash. Plus, the modular design lets you change the look of your space anytime. Visit washablesofas.com to upgrade your home. Shop up to 60% off site-wide, with sofas starting at just $699 and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Shop now at washablesofas.com. Offers are subject to change, and certain restrictions may apply.
Flag football is exploding, and iFlag is leading the way. As the Guinness World Record holder, iFlag hosts premier flag football tournaments nationwide for boys, girls, high school girls, and adults. From first-time players to elite competitors, iFlag delivers top-level competition, unforgettable experiences, and a community built around the game. Ready to be part of it? Join the movement. Find your tournament and learn more at iflag.org. That's iflag.org.
Welcome back to Behind the Bastards, our special edition episodes on Sam Bankman, who is not freed because he is still in jail. That's the intro I've got. It's the same as the last episode.
It's still really
am
funny.
Am I a hack and a fraud? Yes.
No, you're hilarious. It's still very funny.
It's Sophie's favorite.
This is the only time I've made Sophie laugh in years.
That's not true.
Well, okay.
You're
hilarious. I'm Switzerland on this issue.
You're Swiss on this issue.
Yes.
Swishu. Jamie, speaking of Switzerland,
yes?
You also were neutral in World War II. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was sort of like, no, I'm kidding.
Robert, you made me laugh again. Congrats.
God damn it.
2 for 2, baby. So we took a couple of days in between recording part 1 and part 2 to really let it sink in. How are you feeling on our technically not a Behind the Bastards on Michael Lewis, but basically a Behind the Bastards on Michael Lewis, author of The Big Short?
So in the interceding days, I've talked about the Michael Lewis of it all with a couple different people just to see if I was like, if I had just missed something. But every single person I talked to, I found had a similar experience to me where they did not know that he wrote The Blind Side.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
And then when they found out that he wrote The Blind Side, they were like, oh, yeah, I could see that he is he's an honorary bastard.
Yeah. Well, maybe he is kind of a hack. Yeah.
Right. Well, because, they were like, yeah, Michael Lewis, Moneyball, The Big Short. And you're like, and another thing. How did we collectively forget that he wrote that? It feels like he got away with something.
Yeah, and I guess I've been thinking about what he's doing with Sam Bankman-Fried as I think about the upcoming Napoleon movie, which I will have watched by the time this comes out, but it's not out yet. So
You've
excited
sold
about
me
the
on it, for the record.
I'm ready. Everyone, especially like all of these history Twitter podcast people, are so livid that Ridley Scott's basically like, who can say what the truth of Napoleon's life was? Which is, it is a ridiculous thing to say. He's very well documented. We actually know a lot about Napoleon, but also I don't give a shit. It's the guy who made Gladiator.
Also I appreciate, because all biopics are,
nonsense. Yeah.
Horse shit, right? And so you're like, well, this is the one director who's going to say my biopic is kind of horse shit.
It's just lies, which also very appropriate for Napoleon. But what is the line with that? Why am I angry at Michael Lewis for what he's doing? And I don't really care. Yeah,
he's a journalist.
He's a journalist for one. He's not the director of fucking Gladiator, the least accurate movie about Rome ever made.
It's been a great week for like weird old guys who we could argue have peaked creatively. Although I wouldn't say that for Scorsese, but there was a great quote that was floating around in the last couple of days where I guess Scorsese said on the Killers of the Flower Moon press tour that he was like always worried about running out of time and he never knew what his last movie would be. Mm-hmm. And Ridley Scott was asked to like react to that. And he said, since he started Killers of the Flower Moon, I've made 4 films. No, I don't think about it. I get up in the morning and say, great, another day of stress.
Honestly, those are both completely valid answers. I refuse to be a part of some sort of like pretending that what Scott is saying isn't as valid as what Scorsese's saying. There are two ways to deal with mortality. One of them is
the two genders of creative mortality.
Yeah. One is, oh my God, I will die and I won't have said everything I need to say. And the other is, what the fuck? I got shit to do. I gotta move. I don't have time to answer this fucking question. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Robert, Paul Schrader is on Facebook, and Paul Schrader's posting about Taylor Swift in a kind of horny way. So the old men are they're on one this week, and Michael Lewis walks among them.
There's only one old great creative who has taken the reasonable answer to mortality, and it's John Carpenter, who's like, nah, I'm done directing movies. I'm gonna get high, play video games, watch basketball the rest of my life.
And God bless.
God bless him. Yeah, God bless him. There's a man who understands what's valuable in life, a thing that Sam Bankman-Fried never understood.
And we're back.
And we're back. Yeah, we're back. So one of the things that comes up a lot in Michael Lewis's book as he's sort of going into the mind and psyche of Sam Bankman-Fried is that Sam had this belief that no one ever does anything useful after like age 40 to 45, somewhere around there is the last time you have a useful thought in your entire life, which I guess is relevant to our discussion of aging powerful men.
I will say that's true of many stand-up comedians, but I can't speak of that outside of that world.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's true, especially like once you get really rich, you tend to like lose complete touch with the world and go insane.
So
I think that is somewhat accurate, at least for some creative professions. But Sam is not in a creative profession, and it's actually kind of ridiculous to me, the idea that like people in business after age 40, like Steve Jobs did all of his best shit like well after that point, like his most influential like evil things, and most like really successful businessmen are just kind of getting started by their mid 40s, right? Because it takes that much time to get
that, Zuckerberg,
momentum.
You've got a lot of evil left to do.
You got a lot of horrible things left to do. Plenty of time.
Your worst is in front of you.
I think he's got 3 to 5 ethnic cleansings in him, minimum, God. Jamie. Yeah. Maybe 8, I could see him having 8 more ethnic cleansings.
He does seem like someone who just will like have a Kissinger-like affinity for life.
Yeah. So Bankman-Fried's, I understand, belief that like after age 45, he's not going to be capable of having any useful ideas. This is what pushed him, along with his effective altruist idea. This is why he felt like he had to continually gamble rather than like taking the slow, sustainable path, making money off of his exchange at like a reasonable pace. No. I only have a few more years left before my brain shrivels up. And so if I'm going to do anything good for the world, I have to keep putting every dollar I've made on a 50-50 bet endlessly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, I don't know, you should probably get help if you feel that about the world, because that's a deeply self-destructive way to think about yourself and about your assets. This is a big part of why FTX did not have a really crucial thing for any company, particularly a financial company, to have, which is a risk officer, right? A risk officer's job is to analyze the deals the company's doing and go, well, that's an insane risk, so let's not do that one. Or that's an insane risk. We need to offset it with this stuff. They also did not have a chief financial officer or a bunch of other critical executive positions.
Really?
They had no CFO.
Like, that's one I've heard of. You should have that one.
It's a really basic job, and its job is basically to know how much money you have, right? Like there's other stuff to it, but it's pretty critical. FTX also did not have a board of directors, and they're lacking a bunch of other very basic executive positions. And a big part of why is that the only people Sam feels like he can trust are like his friends, and he has this deep aversion to bringing in adults, like people who are not in their 20s, like the friends he went to college with and shit. He said in one interview with Michael, we tried having some grown-ups, but they didn't do anything. This was true for everyone over the age of 45. All they did was worry, which, like, again, given what happened, perhaps they ought to have been.
Maybe I'm just like sort of on one with the idea that very few stand-ups have a valuable thought after 45. But I would say now, reflecting on it, like Sam Bankman-Fried is using the improv troupe approach to a very high stakes business.
Yes.
Like he's like, no, I will only work with people I went to college with. We know best. I don't want no fucking crusties in the room. Like and we could debate all day about whether Sam Bankman-Fried would have done more evil in his life so far or in his life as an improv comedian, because I think they should all be in forever jail. So it's kind of like it's difficult. It's difficult.
This is what Leavenworth should be, right? The military needs to take stand-up comedians into custody. I've always said that.
I'm on a lot of lists.
Yeah.
You know how many bars I've performed in to know people? I'm on a lot of lists.
So Sam's response when he was asked by Michael, like, why don't you guys even have a CFO? That seems important. He says, there's a functional religion around the CFO. I'll ask them, why do I need one? Some people cannot articulate a single thing the CFO is supposed to do. They'll say, keep track of the money or make projections. And I'm like, what the fuck do you think I do all day? You think I don't know how much money we have? Which is funny because his whole legal defense in court was I had no idea how much money we had or where it was. And that's why I didn't commit a crime, right? Because I just was incompetent. I just didn't know where the money was, but it's all somewhere. Like, very silly thing to say, given what he's about to say.
Okay.
So after Sam's life fell apart, Michael Lewis continued to talk and visit multiple. He sometimes would call like 3 or 4 times a day.
Jeez.
Through the 8 months that Sam was on house arrest. And it's interesting to me because, like, Michael, if I was a journalist like Michael Lewis, and I had a conversation with somebody when they were one of the biggest names in an industry being like, a CFO is useless. I know where the money is. And then their entire life explodes because they didn't know what the money is. I would at some point ask them the question, hey, was that maybe a bad idea? Michael does not bring this up to Sam after the collapse in any of the dozens of conversations that they've had. And in fact, and this is why that's weird, the actual villain of his book, Going Infinite, the one person that Lewis is super critical of in like a really uncharitable way, is the CEO brought in to take over the FTX after Sam like leaves and declares bankruptcy. A guy named John Ray III. Now, I am not going to go to bat for John Ray III because his name is John Ray III.
I was
so he's up to
I was
something
like, that's
evil,
a difficult
right?
name to go to bat for.
Yeah. But he is, he's the guy who got brought in to liquidate Enron, and he's a kind of a corporate undertaker, right? When there's a huge scandal at a company, when it like collapses, goes into bankruptcy, and you need someone to kind of do the postmortem, you bring in John Ray, and he's like, as far as I know,
and not the first or second.
No, not the first or second. Those guys are useless.
No, fucking clowns. Okay, you're gonna want to bring in the third.
You need a JR3.
I'm with you.
So.
Nightmare.
It's interesting. Like the degree to which he has, because this guy comes in later, and I think because he's boring, Michael Lewis finds him disgusting. Like, I haven't run into any info that he's like bad at what he does. It's certainly not his fault, but Michael is livid because he's this kind of like stodgy old businessman, and he doesn't understand Sam's special playground or like the wonderful thing that he built. And he's just kind of exasperated at how badly it all works.
See, that's fascinating to me, because to me that says like Michael Lewis is, either just hates boring people, which fair enough, but he should know as a journalist that boring people are often, and maybe most often, tremendously capable of doing bad shit. But it seems like he's looking more for like, well, Bradley Cooper can't play you in a movie. You're useless to me. You're garbage. You're boring.
There's nothing sexy about him. He's just trying to clean up after a disaster. And there's some really funny lines in the book, because like one of the things that Lewis has to do in order to kind of defend Sam as a genius is explain how he didn't steal $9 billion, right? And the answer that Lewis has come to is that money is all there, that he just didn't know where $9 billion was.
Oh.
Yeah, he didn't steal it or gamble it away. He just misplaced it due to rank incompetence that he committed because he was too smart to keep track of things. And I'm going to read you a very, there's a really fun quote there. Lewis describes FTX as a real business, but he says that John Ray, who attacked it as the worst run company he'd ever seen, was just too much of an idiot to understand it, right? He describes Ray trying to figure out what company assets actually existed and what didn't as, quote, like an amateur archaeologist who had stumbled upon a previously unknown civilization, unable to learn anything about its customs or language. He just started digging, right? Like,
gnarly.
He's
Okay.
too dumb to understand the brilliant thing that Sam built up. So he just starts like churning about in the wreckage without really appreciating everything that went into making this monumental edifice. And
I really wonder, like, what, I mean, this is like getting into the weeds a little bit, but I'm very curious, like, who on Michael Lewis's editorial team is keeping him in check? It doesn't sound like he's hired a fact checker. It doesn't sound like he has a personal Jiminy Cricket. So he's just saying shit. Like his personal biases couldn't be more out.
They wanted to rush this thing out, so you don't have much time to edit it, right?
That's true. Yeah.
A year to write and release a book is not a long time.
No. Not enough time, one might argue.
Not enough time, one might argue. And also Michael Lewis has the kind of clout to make that not happen.
Right.
And again, I also kind of think that his hatred of Ray here is based on the fact that Ray did not fall for Sam's bullshit the way Michael did, right? Here's what Ray said shortly after taking over and getting a look at FTX's finances. And this is from an article in Business Insider. At the hearing, Congresswoman Ann Wagner of Missouri asked Ray to elaborate on the specific ways FTX was worse than, quote, one of the largest corporate frauds in history. Ray explained that FTX was unusual and that it had no record keeping whatsoever. He said that employees would exchange invoices and expenses on Slack, the ubiquitous workplace chat room. They used QuickBooks, he added, referring to the accounting software. QuickBooks? Congresswoman Wagner asked for clarification. QuickBooks, very nice tool, not for a multi-billion-dollar company, Ray confirmed. And that's like, basically they're using the kind of thing that you would use if you're like a person keeping track of you or maybe your small business's accounting.
Like, yeah. I've done that. And like that's nuts.
Yeah.
That is like the closest thing I've come to. Yeah, I was like, that's the closest thing I've come to being like, wow, if I was also tasked with multi-billion dollars, I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
QuickBooks? Well, do we go to TurboTax? What do we do?
I would.
But it's like hire a CFO maybe.
Yeah, I would hire someone who's done that before, right? Yeah.
QuickBooks, holy shit.
Yeah. So you can decide whose interpretation sounds more realistic. John Ray basically the two possibilities are like either John Ray just recognizes basic incompetence when he sees it and gets angry, or he's just not brilliant and special enough to understand Sam's world, which is what Michael Lewis, he in caps, that's what Michael Lewis refers to FTX as, is Sam's world, right? This is he basically treats the whole situation as like, yeah, Sam lived in this magical world, and his business was actually secretly good, but it encountered this temporary issue and he was forced out, and then John Ray came in and he tore it all apart because he's just the mean old grumpy businessman, right? That's really like the thrust of Michael Lewis's book. And part of how he kind of emphasizes the magical inner world Sam lived in is this kind of obsession with gaming, returning to like, Lewis is just sort of fascinated with like the fact that Sam was an addict, right? Sam is a gaming addict. That's when you can't like handle your basic functions because you're too busy playing Storybook Brawl, that's an addiction, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting, both because Storybook Brawl was made by his childhood friend and he used consumer funds to purchase it. It seems to have been a pretty mid-game. It shut down after he got arrested, so I can't play it to tell you if it's actually good. But Lewis doesn't describe it as like a middle-brow app game. He describes it as like better than chess, like more complex than chess, a greater intellectual exercise than chess. And he writes this paragraph about it. Sam didn't care for games like chess, where the players controlled everything, and the best move was, in theory, perfectly calculable. Chess he'd have liked better if robot voices wired into the board hollered rule changes at random intervals. Knights are now rooks. All bishops must leave the board. Pawns can now fly, or almost anything, so long as the new rule forced all players to scrap whatever strategy they'd been pursuing and improvise another, better one. The game Sam loved allowed for only partial knowledge of any situation. Trading crypto was like that. And I think
getting fucking ridiculous. Like, is there any chance that Sam Bankman-Fried paid Michael Lewis to say this shit? Like, I don't know that he would still have the money. One of the things, not that there's no proof that he isn't dense, but this is like above and beyond.
The reason why I get that a lot, Michael Lewis was obviously bribed, but like Michael Lewis is very rich. Like, I don't know how you could bribe Michael Lewis, especially after you lose your money.
Yeah, and even if he wasn't from money, he'd be rich.
Yeah. He's always been rich and always will be. So I don't know how much I think that's likely. I think this is his first time ever hearing about games, and so he thinks Sam is brilliant and special because he played them obsessively. I also think, we just did our episodes on Lord John Aspinall, who was like this British gambling maven who basically got the upper class of the England in like the mid-century to just gamble away all of their fucking money. And a big part of why this kind of like old generation of the aristocracy lost so much is they were into these specifically games of chance like Chemin de Fer, which is a kind of baccarat, where basically there's no skill involved. It's as close to pure chance as possible, because there was this like change in the kind of gambling the upper class like to do that I've heard theorized is basically just like, well, these people had nothing in their life but gambling, right? They've always been rich. They're born rich. They've always lived these super safe lives. The only thrill they had was throwing a bunch of money on like effectively a complete chance.
I'll never understand that, because it's like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to become marginally less rich, but still maintain the same quality of life. That sounds boring.
Yeah, they are just insulated from anything thrilling because they're insulated from any real danger, right?
Yeah.
And so I think Sam, being this kind of rich, sheltered kid, Lewis interprets as like he's too smart to play a game like chess. He wants a game where he doesn't actually know what's going on, and a lot of it's random. It's like, well, I just see these old British gamblers in Sam Bankman-Fried, where again, this kid has nothing but the throw of the dice inside him, and that's what he liked, right? Like, and he put a lot of other people's money on those bets. Yeah, anyway, this is a little beside the point, but I did want to read the actual part of the book where Lewis describes Magic the Gathering, because it is very boomer.
No. Okay.
Magic had been created in the early 1990s by a young mathematician named Richard Garfield. It was the first kind of a new kind of game, designed perhaps for a new kind of person. Garfield had started with an odd question: could a strategic game be designed that allowed the players to come to it with different equipment? And again, Games Workshop had started making Warhammer years before Magic came out. Like, all games like this have existed forever. Like,
I couldn't hear you over the sound of imagining Garfield the cat saying that.
Yeah. Which Garfield? Bill Murray, or are we talking Chris Pratt?
There's also a secret third Garfield, whoever did the voice acting on Garfield and Friends, which is my canonical Garfield voice. Yeah. Certainly not Chris Pratt Garfield. I forget who tweeted this, but there is a vibe with the new Garfield that Chris Pratt has been locked in a room, forced to voice every major IP. It's like it's his infinity punishment. He'll be rich, but he can never leave the room.
I'm okay with that, actually. Yeah.
Let's keep him in the room. He doesn't have any good ideas.
No. Keep him in the room. Every 6 years, he can come out to do another interminable Jurassic World movie.
No, the villain was Locust.
So Lewis is so ignorant of kind of the basics of youth culture to this day that he sort of transposes a lot of completely normal millennial and Zoomer behaviors as evidence of Sam's unique brilliance. Here's another clip from 60 Minutes where he describes how Sam treated effective altruism that ties into this. And this is remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
What it means in Sam's instance is you can go out and have a career where you do good. You can go be a doctor in Africa, or you can go out and make as much money as possible and pay people to be doctors in Africa. If you're a doctor in Africa, you end up saving a certain number of lives, but you're only one doctor. But if you can pay 40 people to become doctors in Africa, you're going to save 40 times the number of lives.
This is like a strategy game.
Well, you don't understand Sam Bankman-Fried unless you understand that he turns everything into a game.
Right.
Everything is gamified.
He's describing a pyramid scheme of doctors.
Yes.
Am I wrong? Like,
yes.
And he's saying this on 60 Minutes. I cannot okay, now I'm like taking him being paid off, like, or paid on or off the table, because you're just like, this is ridiculous.
This is too stupid. Yeah.
To light the fact that people somehow collectively forgot that you wrote The Blind Side on fire to say this shit on 60 Minutes. It just like it's What? He's describing a pyramid scheme.
He sure is. He is describing a fucking pyramid scheme. And also, like, this whole he turns everything into a game. Like, because the through line, the
Sam
connection there
Bankman-Fried
is that, like,
jigsaw for good. He wants
sure,
to play
Sam could have been a doctor in Africa, but by making a lot of money, he could hire a bunch of doctors in Africa. And the through line you're meant to make is he was the guy who was best suited making a lot of money because he turned everything into a game. And man, that's, again, not unique to Sam. A significant percentage of the U.S. economy is based around taking the logic and addictive strategies game developers use and applying it to every imaginable industry, right? Like, that's fucking everywhere. Like, Sam is, again, not unique in this. And also it's just the fact that Lewis seems to have bought into the basic logic of, like, well, it's better to pay a bunch of doctors than becoming one is silly because, like,
sure.
Well, we have a shortage of doctors. We don't have a shortage of assholes who gamble with other people's money. There's not actually enough doctors for the people who need them.
And also, I mean, to that point, it doesn't sound like would I trust, knowing what I do, of Sam Bankman-Fried's ability to multitask, that would I trust him doing surgery? No. I don't think I would. I don't think I would.
I wouldn't trust him doing either of those things.
Doctor in Africa.
Yeah. No, he would never have, right? Like, but yeah. Anyway.
But it sounds like maybe I'm like, giving him too much credit and he's playing a game of 4D chess, but it doesn't seem that way. And he sounds ridiculous.
I kind of, outside of he's just completely deluded, his two options are he's just so out of touch with the youth that he thought Sam was unique in this, or he decided from the moment he met him, this is the framing device I want to use for Sam's genius in my book because I think they could film it easily, right? Because I'm sure he thinks that way about the books he's written. He's had so many of them adapted. And like, yeah, there's a lot of fun ways you could film this super genius solving his math problems through like imagining games out in the real world, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my guess is that he just couldn't get himself off of this idea he had for like the inevitable Sam Bankman-Fried movie, crafted for the Big Bang Theory audience.
Yeah, where he's like, oh yeah, who's hot right now? Paul Mescal. We'll dye his hair. It's gonna be fucking great.
No, I think they should have had Timothée Chalamet. I think they should have had Timothée Chalamet do like a what's his name? The Batman guy, where he would like wildly change his appearance in ways that are bad for his health every 6 months for a movie.
No, don't talk about Robert Pattinson that way.
You're talking about Christian Bale. I'm talking about Christian Bale. I want to see Timothée Chalamet do a Christian Bale to look like Sam Bankman-Fried. That sounds fun.
I just worry about Timothée Chalamet. It looks like if you like touch him, he may shatter. I just worry about him. He looks so frail.
Yeah, that's the right.
Sick.
He looks like he's got consumption. Yeah, like that. They would say that about him in the distant past. Yeah.
And it's like, if Sam Bankman-Fried is looking hardier than you are, like, you're in trouble, my man.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that about Sam, but. So there's an amusing coda to Lewis's loving descriptions of Sam as a compulsive gamer. This paragraph occurs right after the FTX customers pull a run on the bank, annihilating its cash reserves and starting its collapse, as like the employees are all huddled inside their $30 million Bahamas suites to try to figure out how to fix things. Nishad was agitated with Sam in a way that Romnick had never seen, at one point turning on him and screaming, "Will you please fucking stop playing Storybook Brawl?" And I like that anecdote, but it gets to another frustrating issue with Going Infinite, which is that Michael Lewis has all of the ingredients for a great modern Icarus story of hubris and the fall, but making it work tonally would require him to see these things that are obvious warning signs as warning signs and structure his book that way, right? And then you get some catharsis in the payoffs. But these warning signs are just sort of scattered around. They're not given the significance he would give them if he saw them as warning signs, because he's clearly taken with all of this stuff. Another example of a valid through line Lewis seems to have missed is Bankman-Fried's complete disregard, even distaste, for the competence of the women around him. Lewis spends a fair amount of time on Sam's relationship with Carolyn, and he reprints these letters between them that certainly don't make Sam look great. It began with a seriously compelling list titled Arguments Against. This is arguments against her dating him. In a lot of ways, I don't really have a soul. This is a lot more obvious in some contexts than others, but in the end, there's a pretty decent argument that my empathy is fake, my feelings are fake, my facial reactions are fake. I don't feel happiness. What's the point in dating someone you physically can't make happy? I have a long history of getting bored and claustrophobic. This has the makings of a time when I'm less worried about it than normal, but the baseline prior might be high enough that nothing else matters. I feel conflicted about what I want. Sometimes I really want to be with you. Sometimes I want to stay at work for 60 hours straight and not think about anything else. And
so I want to say that I have this amount of self-love to not fall for this, but I can't even say that 100%. I just really feel for Carolyn at a lot of points in this story because it's, oh my God. I really like, I feel like there's a version of someone who would be like, oh, I can fix him, where you're like, oh no, this is like, it's like tween fiction of like, there's only one
and
who
she loved tween fiction.
Love with me. I know. She's at a disadvantage.
And it's difficult because like Lewis discusses kind of Sam's inability to be like functional with the people in his life, because like, and he clearly has a thing like he funds another exchange by another woman in crypto who he tries to date.
Women in crypto.
Like, yeah, he's got this kind of thing going on, but Lewis kind of always writes off his behavior as like, well, you know, he was too depressed. He can't focus. He's too brilliant to like be in a
tortured genius playbook of just like, oh, and he's horrible to women, but only because his mind is blah, 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 blah. Like they did the same. This happens every 10 years. Like that happened with Zuckerberg. They're like, no, he's a rampant misogynist because like his business started off of misogyny because he just had so many good ideas that it was like pressing on the woman respect nerve. It's ridiculous.
Kind of meanwhile, when Lewis is describing like why Carolyn did what she did, he includes the line where he quotes someone as saying she would throw away all of her principles to be loved. Like she's the only one of the effective altruist kids who doesn't really believe in it. She's just so desperate for affection that she would like do anything for it, which like, I don't know, like I don't know the person, but it's weird that Lewis is so cynical about her and so full of excuses for Sam.
I would have a fair amount of guesses as to why that may be, and the way that it seems like in many ways that Lewis has seen himself in Sam, and like especially if you're used to like writing profiles of very successful, eccentric people, which he is. Yeah. If this is the precedent you've set for the kind of behavior that you would excuse, such as clear racism or sexism, why would this be any different? Like it fucking sucks. And then also on the other end of Carolyn being characterized as this like desperate for affection person, I try to like tap into that of like, God, if any of my personal correspondence came out, I'd be fucking cooked.
Oh, like, it would be devastating.
Is like so many people, and it's like she's being singled out.
That's the thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, everyone's desperate for affection.
So anytime you see Lewis writing about Sam, he writes in kind of the terms. Sam, as one of the people in this weird effective altruism cult, he uses terms like he talks about his priors, which is like it's a way of like bringing Bayesian mathematics into personal decisions. And all you're saying when you're saying like, well, these are my priors is like, well, this is the shit I believe without any kind of evidence, right? That's largely what that means. These are like my pre-existing biases, but saying pre-existing biases like doesn't sound as smart as my priors. And likewise, Sam would always talk about like, well, every decision I make is like a mathematical decision, and I calculate what's the expected value of this outcome versus this outcome, and then I do the thing with the highest expected value, right? Which is another way of saying I do whatever will make me feel good, which is, a lot of us are like that a lot of the time. That's human nature. We are creatures of comfort in a lot of ways. Yeah. But Sam is just dressing up selfishness in lines like this. Sam wanted to do whatever at any given moment offered the highest expected value, and his estimate of her, Carolyn's expected value, seemed to peak right before they had sex and plummet immediately after. And that's no different than a lot of guys in their 20s. That's not special.
It just sounds like a fucking guy.
Oh, so you're saying he got horny and then he didn't care about her afterwards? Well, that's not special.
How? I can't relate. Wow.
Yeah, that's not just millions of men. That's millions of people.
It's so, I mean, even just outside of his relationships with women and his relationship with Carolyn, I don't know, it gives me sort of like Mensa PTSD, where there is this like two-hander where it's either you can't understand what I'm doing because I am a super genius and you are not operating on my level. You could never understand why I am fucking up at this tremendous rate. And then if they're challenged enough, it's like, well, actually, I'm, I don't know the correct way to like characterize this, but it almost becomes like internet speak where it's like, no, I'm actually just like, I don't give a shit. It's actually, I'm using QuickBooks because I don't give a fuck. It's like either I am a genius or I don't care. And there's nothing in between. And it's like what is in between is just the fact that they're full of shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know who else is full of shit? Nope. Time to head to ads. Oh, boy, I sure do love ads. Those were some good ones. So we're back. We're talking about Sam Bankman-Fried's issues with women, as chronicled by Michael Lewis, who does, to his credit, make a point of noting that all of the company's moves as CEO from the U.S. to Hong Kong and then from Hong Kong to the Bahamas were prompted by, like, he and Ellison would have some big relationship conversation, and she would say, like, I want to have a closer relationship, and then he would move the entire company without telling anybody, which, again, like, the instant you hear that anecdote, you're like, oh, well, this guy... There's nothing. This guy is not a super genius. Like, this guy is just a guy
kind
of can't avoid deal with confrontation. Like, that's not special. Again, millions of us out there.
Every conflict avoidant person has their approach. It knows no gender, but it skews towards one.
Yeah.
My last boyfriend bought an upright bass. That was how. Bless his heart.
I don't
think...
May
he rot.
Yeah. The real shame here is that I don't think Lewis draws any sort of connection between how Sam treats the women at his company and how, like, Sam treats adults with the specialized financial knowledge that might have saved his company. Because there is I'm not trying to discount his misogyny, which is certainly a thing, but, like, I think the bigger through line with Sam that is present outside of just his dealing with, like, the women that he was in relationships with and worked with is that Sam doesn't think anyone besides him has worthwhile thoughts or ideas, and that anything he doesn't understand is not worth paying attention to, which is a big thing in tech guys, right? This attitude that, like, you're seeing it now with these AI freaks where they don't think that there's any value in the human creation of art because they don't understand it. Like, they're willing to, like, have an AI just, like, come up with some crap that's vaguely patterned off of a historic. See, isn't this picture of, like, isolation and anomie in modern society better now that we've turned it into a bunch of friends having brunch outside of a cafe? Look, it's much brighter now and prettier. It's like, no, that's not the point of the art. You don't understand. But, like, they don't. Yeah, it's this thing.
Do you think that a computer could come up with the image of Paul Walker and Brian the dog in a convertible? No, that's a uniquely human artistic instinct.
Only we would understand it.
Only humans would get it.
This idea that, like, I am smart and therefore if I don't understand something, it's not important, right? It's something for, like, people who are less than me to deal with. This is why the company fell apart. And it's interesting to me that, like, Lewis, he clearly does see aspects of how Sam treats women unfairly, but he doesn't make any sort of leaps between the way Sam treats, like, everybody who's not him. And I find that interesting.
I do too.
Yeah. Good stuff. So perhaps the biggest major through line in Going Infinite is Michael Lewis not getting the joke. That section where he quotes SBF explaining why CFOs are dumb is a perfect example. On a casual reading, you might even assume that we were supposed to find the line, what do you think I do? What the fuck do you think I do all day? Do you think I don't know how much money we have? Funny, because Sam did not know how much money they had.
Of course
But at the
not.
climax of the book, after FTX is crumbled, Lewis goes into detail to discuss all the money that was recovered by John Ray. Quote, at the end
The
of
third?
the third. At the end of June 2023, John Ray filed a report on his various collections. To date, the debtors have recovered approximately $7 billion in liquid assets, he wrote, and they anticipate additional recoveries, $7.3 billion to be exact. Ray was inching towards an answer to the question I'd been asking from the day of the collapse. Where did all that money go? The answer was nowhere. It was still there. And that's not true. The reason he's writing this is that earlier in Sam's career, a bunch of people leave Alameda because he loses $4 million. And they think that he's lost $4 million in investor money, and he's a dick about it. And later they find it, like he had just misplaced it, basically. And so Lewis is being like, that's just what happened. They were never really in bankruptcy. See, it was a good business. Like they just didn't have any record keeping, so they lost the money. And this meanie John Ray thinks it's bad to lose several $1 billion. But what Lewis is saying is not true. He is kind of lying here. Maybe it's an honest mistake. I don't know, but it's not accurate because for one thing, 7.3 billion has been found. Almost 9 billion is missing. So that's $1.5 billion unaccounted for still. That's still one of the largest financial frauds in history, right?
Significant. That's what
maybe
mean,
as much as 2 billion. Yeah.
Just even if you're trying to get through to someone who knows nothing about finance, the second number, the missing number, is bigger than the first one.
The number.
Like, that's not good.
Well, he tries to close that hole by being like, and a lot of that money is in these, money they paid to these companies that they'll probably get back. And it's like, why would you think that? A lot of that money went to other shady crypto people who don't bank in the U.S. Why do you think the money's going to come back?
Well, see, this is interesting because now, I feel bad because I know Michael Lewis is not the bastard of the episode. However,
he's kind of become that. Yeah.
If we're applying Sam Bankman-Fried's theory that you do not do any valuable work after 45, that may in fact apply to Michael Lewis.
Yeah,
sounds like maybe he's lost the thread because it's the way that he's talking about money. And I have not read this book.
I have. What you're just.
That's why they pay you the big bucks. But like to hear how he talks about money in this book and to know that his most famous works have to do with finance, with the exception of the Blind Side, which everyone forgets that he wrote, like it calls his entire body of work into question.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, just the ridiculousness of being like, well, look, guys, they've recovered $7 billion out of $9.3 billion, so things are basically good. Like, that's insane. But also, as we'll get to later, that doesn't tell the whole truth. Like, this idea that everyone's going to get their money back is not true. But Lewis, in order to continue believing that Sam was a super genius, he has to have this kind of tragic story where, like, he didn't really lose the money. It was a misunderstanding. It's all unfair. And because he needs to believe this, I think for the sake of his own ego, bringing up the fact that there's a lot of money missing is a really easy way to piss him off. And I'm going to play you this clip. It's the most revealing clip that I've found. And this is from an interview he did on a YouTube channel called Intelligence Squared after the FTX collapse, like after his book came out. So while Sam is on trial, basically.
Okay.
7.3 billion. So it's 1.3 billion that's missing. Plus it, and there's still more to be found.
Number.
Hold on.
And it's more than that. It's more than that.
This is where today, the prosecution sent a motion to the court saying, can we please not talk about the possibility that customers are all going to get their money back? And that in particular, you're going to let me finish?
I am.
Do you care?
I need to let them in.
Oh my God.
I think what I care about is the fact that at the very least
you thought it was important, but now you don't think it's important.
I do think it's important. I think at the very least he's irresponsible.
Of course. I'm not saying he's not irresponsible. I'm saying it's just different than you think.
Okay. A few observations. First of all, toupee. Uh-huh. Second of all, uploaded for.
That is a toupee, right? His hair does not look real.
The colors, it's not giving matching color. Second observation, upload date 4 weeks ago. Gnarly.
Yeah.
Right. Third observation, obviously he cuts off a woman aggressively to be wrong. And then finally, it just because the listeners cannot see the size of that venue, it gave me a brief, I felt it in my stomach to be like, wow, that many people will gather to see Michael Lewis just spew bullshit, and yet 15 people show up to watch me butt chug a quart of milk. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Jamie, though, here's the thing. This is the difference between,
it's the same. The cultural
this is the difference between
is the same.
What I call vulgar art, which is the stuff that will be forgotten, within a generation, and immortal art, right? Like the Parthenon, You butt chugging the contents of Infinite Jest was a Parthenon level work of art. It will be with us in 10,000 years.
Misunderstood in its
Just
time.
like the Parthenon.
He's in like a fucking cathedral, though. I mean,
it does look like he's in.
Weird venue.
Sophie, can you bring up a freeze frame of his face at like 12:57 in that, because he is doing an I think you should leave face. Like he is almost a perfect character for one of those fucking sketches.
Oh, Tim Robinson could do this guy.
Tim Robinson could do an amazing job of this. There's that sketch from the recent season where he's being like an on-air pundit who like gets on his phone and gets real quiet whenever he loses an argument. That Lewis is definitely doing that kind of face in this.
God.
That right there, where he's like, he's got his hand. Yeah. He's doing a Tim Robinson.
He's really, oh boy.
It's
and I'm
funny.
Doubling down on the toupee theory. I'm right.
Yeah. No, that hair does not move the way hair does.
I can't see his teeth well enough to see if we've got the veneers to match, but.
He's too rich to not have veneers.
I aspire to veneers. I just want to have exactly that much money.
I wanted to play you how angry he gets there, because we're going to address the actual facts of his claim now. Even if you take Lewis at his word, which is that it's basically fine because they recovered 7.3 out of like $9.3 billion, he's obfuscating the truth. It is accurate that Ray has announced FTX customers will see 90% of every dollar of recovered assets returned, which I would still call that problematic, because if somebody stole 10% of your bank account, you'd be kind of miffed. But that is even not what it seems like. And I'm quoting from Investopedia here. To be clear, the 90% number refers to the funds FTX is able to gain access to, rather than total customer deposits at the time of the exchange's collapse. That doesn't necessarily mean customers will gain access to 90% of their assets that were left on the exchange. Rather, customers will gain access to 90% of the funds FTX is able to distribute to their creditors. FTX and FTX US had an estimated $8.7 billion combined shortfall by the time the crypto firm filed for bankruptcy. Roughly 6.9 billion of that shortfall, including a Bahamas real estate portfolio, has been recovered. Let's consider Bitcoin, the largest cryptocurrency by market capitalization, as a proxy for the broader cryptocurrency markets. On November 11th of last year, the petition date, Bitcoin was trading at around 17,000. On Friday, it crossed 30,000. So simply put, if the current plan goes through, you'd likely get 85% of the dollar value of your cryptocurrency held on FTX as of last November, even if the same coins have almost doubled in value today. So one of those, like both he's kind of overestimating the amount that they're going to get back. And also because they still lost access to that money for, it'll probably turn out to be 2 or 3 years. Like people have had to sell their homes and shit because like they had all of their money like that. There's harm here, right? That's what the courts are taking. Not only is there still money missing, and not an insignificant amount, but like people suffered in the interim where they didn't have access to their money. And yeah, they're crypto gamblers. This isn't the most sympathetic population, but that is not relevant to determining whether or not Sam has legal. He's stealing 15 or 20% of a bunch of people's savings accounts is a substantial crime.
The legal question is it a scam? Which, yes, and I'm sure that like everyone who, and understandably, because I walk amongst them, like everyone who was seeing this happen a couple of years ago up to very recently, were like, what are you talking about? This happening is like a very, it's like easy to cheer it on, but it's also like, Sam Bankman-Fried was taking advantage of every possible mark he could.
Yeah. And people are still suffering ongoing harm as a result of it. He's acting like Lewis is acting as if there wasn't really anyone hurt. And it's like, well, no. Like, even if all of them, which will not happen, at least about 20% of that money, of depositor money, is just gone, probably more. Mm-hmm. But even if he hadn't done that, if you're still locked out of your money for 2 years because a guy illegally gambled with it, are you going to be fine that it came back eventually? No, you still didn't have that money for years, and that's a problem for you. That's a crime.
I mean, and I would be more amenable to that perspective if it was coming from someone who wasn't as like historically fabulously rich as Michael Lewis is, because it's like a rich gaming the rich story can be really satisfying, but this is not the guy to be making it, and he's falling on the wrong side anyways.
And
so
it's
like,
not gaming the rich because like they didn't hire Larry David to do a commercial so they could scam billionaires, right? They hired Larry David to do a commercial so they could scam your mom. You know, because your mom likes Larry David. I'm not saying the rest of us don't. I mean, most moms do, right? He's pretty popular amongst the moms.
Sound off in the comments. I don't know if my mom knows who. I mean,
all the women in my family were big
watches,
Seinfeld fans.
Does your mom watch Curb? Message me.
No, but Seinfeld.
Oh, my mom. Yeah,
my
mom. Watched
Seinfeld. My mom watched Seinfeld.
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah. So anyway, Michael Lewis. Yeah, it's interesting to me, like the fact that Sam Bankman-Fried stole money from depositors, because that's what it is when you take money out of one company illegally and use it to gamble in another company. That's stealing. Michael Lewis never uses the term stolen to describe what Sam did. And he basically goes to great lengths to claim that Sam misplaced all this money. This is, again, wildly inaccurate. And a good example of that is Alameda's hashtag Fiat account, which is like, that was one of the names for like the account where they were putting all of the actual U.S. dollars that customers put in the exchange.
Yeah,
so customers would put U.S. dollars into FTX and then use it to like buy cryptocurrency, right? But those U.S. dollars needed to stay in the exchange so that people could cash out their positions, right? Otherwise, you're not doing legitimately what you're supposed to do as a business. FTX was not a bank. A bank is only has to keep a certain amount in reserve, right? That's what a reserve currency is. This is an exchange. They were supposed to keep enough reserve in there to cover the value of their deposits. Sam instead took all that money and put it into Alameda. And there's evidence that it went directly into Alameda. The money people thought they were depositing into FTX went into another company entirely. Wow. I would call that, and in fact, Sam was convicted because this is an example of fraud. Lewis depicts it as an honest mistake. And here's the New Yorker, quote, Lewis finds it not only wholly implausible that this was, in fact, a gigantic accounting error explained by FTX's difficulties securing bank accounts. As Lewis concludes, his story, implausible as it sounded, remained irritatingly difficult to disprove. And Lewis very gently insinuates that Ellison, in over her head, might have made some very bad decisions. And in court, which again is a couple of weeks after his book comes out, it is proven with data from the company that Sam not only knew what he was doing, but he ordered other people to obscure this fact from customers, right? He ordered his employees to hide from customers that their money was going straight into another company. This was proven when they actually during the court case, they had the people who programmed the exchange on Sam's behalf, post code. Jesus. And I found an analysis of FTX's code by Molly White, who does a newsletter called Citation Needed, which is quite good. Molly knows code and stuff. So here's her analyzing that. Prosecutors questioned Wang, who was the guy who was coding the exchange, about the FTX insurance fund, which was ostensibly supposed to protect both FTX and its customers from trades that went badly even more quickly than the exchange's risk engine could account for. FTX published the fund's supposed balance on their website and bragged widely about its existence, including in testimony to U.S. Congress. However, according to Wang, the number showed on the website was falsified. And the question is is this a real number? Wang, no. So it's a fake number? Yes. Was the real number higher or lower than the fake number? Lower. And Yeah, the way that they would do this, so like they're supposed to have this insurance fund, which is part of what makes FTX safer than the other exchanges, is that you can't do a run on the bank because our entire, like all of our deposits are backed up by cash, right? So we can't collapse the way that other exchanges do. And like to make people feel comfortable, they would show them, they had like, you could see like what the insurance fund was at. They would regularly brag, we have this much money in our insurance fund.
Was that number accurate? Like,
no, all they were doing.
I don't know why I even asked.
The code snippets show that like Sam ordered Nishad Singh to write some code that would update the insurance fund amount randomly by adding it to the daily trading volume, like the amount of, basically it would calculate how much has been traded today, and it would multiply that by a random number somewhere around 7,500 and then divide it by 1 billion. So
This is how an 11-year-old would
lying,
describe
right?
how you do business. They're like, so
there was never a real insurance fund of any like meaningful amount of money. They just pretended it was there by having a computer do a random equation. So it seemed like it was fluctuating over time.
Yeah,
right?
that's not legal to do.
No,
you
that's
cannot
fraud.
Do that. I feel like this level of like splitting hairs in the New Yorker wouldn't happen unless the two main players, Michael Lewis and Sam Bankman-Fried, weren't tremendously privileged. Like for any other people, you would be like, yeah, so this was a lie and then this happened. Like you wouldn't be splitting hairs like this.
To be fair, the actual thrust of that New Yorker article is like Michael Lewis is what the fuck is happening with this guy, because he's clearly fallen for like the New Yorker article is very critical of him. It's bringing up that he is not calling Sam Bankman-Fried a fucking con man when he clearly is, right?
Okay, so they're like headline, Michael Lewis low-key fell off?
Yeah, low-key he fell off. That's right. Molly also brings up something else that was left out of court, but the prosecution published evidence of it, and I found this really telling. Elsewhere in the code, it's possible to observe that the amount of FTT, which is the token created that represented basically voting shares, it was FTX's funny money, was actually represented by a hard-coded value in the user interface and was not pulling from an external data source to get a real number. So again, they're lying about how much money is in this fund, and part of how you can tell is when you would ask to see the insurance fund, it wouldn't consult back to the servers. It was doing the calculation on your own machine, right? Which is evidence that like there was never any attempt to give people accurate information.
Wow.
It's fun stuff. There's other fun reveals during the court case. For example,
give me the twists. Yeah.
During FTX's days as a functioning business, a lot of crypto people noticed there was a potential conflict of interest between FTX and Alameda. They were like, hey, it seems like you run both these companies and like traders on Alameda are trading on FTX. Is it possible that they're getting preferential treatment on the exchange that you also owned? There's a really telling Twitter conversation on Molly's blog where someone asks this and SBF says, Alameda is the liquidity provider, but their account is just like everyone else's. And the respondent rightfully says, I guess we're just supposed to trust you. And it turned out they were right to be worried. One of the chief selling points about FTX is that it's crash proof, right? Crypto exchanges have this weird habit, like 20 years old now, of getting really big and then collapsing, taking everyone's money with them. Yeah. Sometimes this is due to hacks, but also because there's no regulation, a lot of times major traders will go bust, and that causes losses for the whole exchange, which gets socialized, right? Everybody loses money because one bad gambler gambled too much. One of FTX's selling points was that it was different. They had an algorithm to automatically freeze trades on an account once that account had suffered losses equal to the amount of money they'd put in the exchange, right? So you can't lose more money than you put in, is the basic idea. Okay. So that's how it was supposed to work, and that's how it worked initially. But the limit that Alameda had for its gambling to make sure that it couldn't get in over its skis was removed later on Sam Bankman-Fried's orders. And in court, Gary Wang, Sam's business partner, explained how Sam directed them to do this. Wang explained that Alameda had not started out with such a high credit limit, but that periodically the trading firm had run into issues placing trades because they didn't have enough collateral. Sam Bankman-Fried kept asking him to increase their credit limit to prevent it from happening. According to Wang, the limit was originally set to a few $1 million, but then it was increased to $1 billion. After they ran up against that limit too, Bankman-Fried asked him to set it to a number so large they wouldn't likely hit the limit. At that point, Wang set it to around $65 billion. And when I read that, what I see is this is a gambler in Vegas who's like taking out loans to keep gambling because he's run out of money. Like he's like,
yeah, you just imagine like someone like on their knees in like shitty pinstripe pants being like, come on, man.
Yeah, give me some credit, man. I'm good for it.
But he got up to $65 billion in credit.
Yeah, which is insane. Now, when you pair all this with the stories that Lewis tells of SBF's gaming addiction, you might conclude, was this kid just a fucking gambling addict? Which is by the way, that's my interpretation.
To me, it sounds like this shit is Neo points to him. Like it really is. Like if there's anything that got the millennial generation hooked on capitalism and random gambling, it was Neopets. Yeah. And if anyone has proof that Sam Bankman-Fried was a Neopets user, he just sounds like the worst version of a Neopets user to me. The worst end game for a Neopets user is what you've been describing to me for several hours.
And I think you and I were not invested in Sam Bankman-Fried ever being particularly smart, so we can see this. No. Lewis,
he's a Neopets user,
Lewis,
and I bet I was better at it than him.
Well, that's the other thing. He was never very good at games. Like people found his like League of Legends account and were like, yeah, he was mid. Like I'm sure he wasn't good at Storybook Brawl, right? Like he was never good at this.
But it was the first time that Michael Lewis had heard of Storybook Brawl. So Sam Bankman-Fried said he was the best at it. Why not believe him? Yeah.
And that just the idea, like, again, Lewis can't be like, yeah, this kid had a gambling problem and he also owned a bank. So it became everyone's issue. But like,
he's the bank man.
It's hard to portray someone as smart if they're just addicted to gambling, right? Because that's not a smart person thing. It actually, a lot of smart people are horrible addicts in a variety of ways, but like,
but it's it's a serious problem.
In a Hollywood way, make it look like somebody's a genius if they just can't control themselves, right?
Yeah, it's a serious problem.
Yeah. And I again, no shame on people who have that problem, but like that does not work with how Lewis wants to portray him, right? And speaking of things that don't work, shit.
Everything you're about to advertise.
We won't have to work if you purchase these products.
Okay, good self-correction.
Yeah, I saved
Actually,
it.
will continue to work. More accurate.
Yeah, both true. We're back. So, I think it's clear from the stuff that came out in the court case that I just read some of, there's no way Alameda and FTX would have done the things that I just described if they hadn't meant to disguise the reality of their business from the world, which is fraud, right? The reality is that Sam Bankman-Fried used depositor money to gamble. And he was gambling in part on his own chances. He wasn't just gambling. This is the thing that is important to understand. Past a certain point, most of his gambling was not him betting on cryptocurrencies, right? The big shit he did that made the news, the $1 billion that he pumped into renaming that stadium in Florida, to bringing in all these celebrities, to these high-dollar Super Bowl ads, that was a gamble. He was pulling a slot machine on his own chances of ascending to the halls of power, right?
Sounds like him, yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite aside bits from the court case is that on the stand, when she was being questioned, Carolyn Ellison told everybody that Sam confided in her he thought he'd had a 5% chance of becoming president of the United States, which...
Well, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but also like, look at some of the dumbasses we've got. He's probably not wrong that he at least could have been like, who is that fucking loser from Starbucks? He could have at least been that.
Yeah, he could have. I think he could have had a failed presidential, but no, like.
Yeah. Oh, like, yeah. No,
they're all dumb. Like Joe Biden and Donald Trump have both done very stupid things, different kinds of very stupid things, but they both have charisma. A lot
of the same,
right?
That's true. That's true.
They but like you could again say what you will about Joe Biden. He wouldn't have been in politics this long if he couldn't make enough people like him. And obviously, Donald Trump is very charismatic. Sam Bankman-Fried just isn't. Like, you don't become the president if you are a void of charisma.
No, we've learned that time and time again. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, he was always, all of his sudden rise to public prominence was not based on him actually being interesting. It was based on him spending tens of millions of dollars to get, like, Bill Clinton to pretend to be his buddy. Like, that was all there ever was to it, you know? In my general research on the crypto industry, and if you're looking for actual good reading, don't buy Going Infinite. You won't get anything valuable at it. If you do want to get something valuable and a deeper understanding about, like, how grifty this whole industry was, and also how grifty Sam was, there's a book called Number Go Up by Zeke Faux. Zeke, F-A-U-X. Really good book, Number Go Up, which I do recommend to people curious for the dark side of crypto. Zeke also spent time with Sam in the Bahamas, and I found this passage from his book relevant to what I just mentioned. A few hours into our conversation, Bankman-Fried told me he had to make a call. I had asked him if there was anyone who'd support his version of events, and he said I could talk with one of his few remaining supporters while I waited. In walked a haughty man with a long, scraggly beard, a potbelly, and mismatched socks, one of them with a Pac-Man design. He was an employee of FTX who'd stuck around to help Bankman-Fried try to find an investor to rescue the exchange. I threw out an easy question. Why are you still here? I asked. He started off by saying he wanted to help FTX's customers. Then, unprompted, he told me he thought there wasn't much of a risk that Bankman-Fried would ever get in trouble. I firmly believe once somebody becomes a certain level of rich, they're never poor again, he said. They don't go to jail. Nothing bad happens to them.
Wait, he has his own Zuckerberg quote. He has his own, you can be unethical and still be legal.
Yeah.
That's the way I live my life. Haha. Wait, read it again for me so I can really take it in.
Yeah,
and
and
put it
again,
on
this
a t-shirt.
is Sam's friend who stuck by him after his business collapsed.
It
I firmly
works.
believe once somebody becomes a certain level of rich, they're never poor again. They don't go to jail. Nothing bad happens to them.
Poetry.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Gorgeous.
It's a beautiful thing to think in
Gorgeous.
that moment, too, where all of the smarter people have just fled the island. Like,
And in that moment, he was infinite. That was, wow.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
speechless.
It's so funny, too, because, like, I don't know, man, just historically, do you remember, like, Marie Antoinette was pretty rich, and like that didn't end well, you know. Like there's a long.
Kirsten Dunst played her in
The
a
Tsar
movie.
had a lot of money. It didn't go well for him. You know, bad things happen to rich people too. I mean,
wow,
fuck,
and that's your main political stance, as I recall. Yeah.
I will hang out with anybody rich because nothing bad can happen to them. Obviously untrue. I kind of suspect that sort of. I don't know. The fact that so much of what was said, like Zeke Faux is clearly someone who's smart enough to like understand when he's being lied to by these people and to understand their fundamental absurdity. And that comes across in his book. I don't think Lewis got that, right? He believed fundamentally in the fundamental honesty at the center of Sam Bankman-Fried. And I kind of suspect that's why he covered his face with his hands that day in court. He's not a dumb man, and he must have realized by that point the evidence that came out in the trial was it made it undeniable that he got conned too. One of the most remarkable things about Going Infinite is how much detail Lewis provides about FTX's collapse without ever calling Sam a liar. The Guardian's review noted this too. He thought Bankman-Fried hadn't lied to him at all, or at least that he'd only lied by omission, not by commission. Late in the book, Lewis asks Bankman-Fried, "What would you have done if I'd asked you specifically about FTX customer funds being used by Alameda?" Bankman-Fried admits that he would have changed the subject or rustled up a word salad. And whatever the facades erected by other effective altruists, Lewis considers Bankman-Fried to be enigmatic but essentially genuine, and certainly not out to enrich himself, because he has no desire for the things that money can buy. Lewis's refusal to believe that Sam Bankman-Fried is a liar in the most venal, base sense of the word is based, I think, on a sense of professional pride. That explains why he's so adamant about pushing the line that there was no money missing, and it's why he continued to defend Sam's dissembling as a fun, quirky character trait while the trial was going on. See, as part of the cash-in on Going Infinite, Michael Lewis launched a podcast, Judging Sam, the trial of Sam Bankman-Fried.
It was and who but everyone on this call knows that the first sign that your life is about to be fucking torched is starting a podcast. Wow.
That's right. It's the last refuge of fools and scoundrels.
Yeah.
Please pay for the Cool Zone free subscription at, what do we call it, Sophie? So the trial, Judging Sam is part of Lewis's Against the Rules podcast on Pushkin. And I can't speak for the regular episodes of that podcast. I have not listened to any of the other ones. But I can say his Sam Bankman-Fried trial podcast is an uneven effort at best. Most of the work is done by Lydia Jean. She's a journalist. She's okay. I don't have any huge issues with her. I think we get a little too much like, here's what the court kitchen is like. Here's anecdotes from the fun lives of the journalists covering it.
But
also,
then it's like my least favorite part of every public radio, and I love public radio, but the broadcast where it like begins with 6 minutes of a guy stepping on leaves, and you're like, oh my God, I get it. You're in fucking New Hampshire in October.
It's
what
permanently
happened?
fall where you NPR people leave. We understand. Yes. But every podcast on this trial does something like that. I think it's just because they were doing like basically daily episodes and needed to fill runtime. Wow. And like, look, is that lazy? Yes. Have we all been there? Yes. So I simply can't throw stones at this glass house.
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
As someone who's never had a daily podcast, I condemn this behavior because I've never had to do it.
So
you're welcome.
Lydia takes most of the lifting on this show because Lewis was on tour for his book, right? And so he couldn't be there for most of it. He was barely at the trial.
Yeah, he was screaming at women in cathedrals. He was busy.
Yeah. But he does occasionally come on. And one of the episodes that does show, like, he shows up to court on the day that Sam takes the trial or takes the stand in his own defense. And, during this portion where he's like, Sam's being cross-examined, he says, I don't recall more than 100 times. Here's how a write-up from The Verge summarizes his time on the stand. Bankman-Fried's demeanor suggested a spoiled child complaining he didn't get the biggest scoop of ice cream at his birthday party. He didn't want to answer the prosecutor's questions or his lawyer's questions. He wanted to answer his own questions, which he liked better. He often replied to yes and no questions with nonsense. We were getting introduced to a document where Bankman-Fried listed his priorities, including getting accounting right on FTX. Cohen and Bankman-Fried, Cohen's his lawyer, and Bankman-Fried used this to show how devoted Bankman-Fried was to getting to the bottom of the general fiasco with Alameda's money. The idea was to display in real time FTX's revenue and expenses, where its bank accounts were, how much investor money it had, and so on. This did reveal Bankman-Fried's priorities. Getting accounting right was ranked 9th. So for the stories Bankman-Fried wanted to tell, we had to rely on Bankman-Fried. We moved on to Bankman-Fried's argument about hedging, which I still do not understand, except as a way for him to say he's a smarter trader than his ex-girlfriend, the former Alameda Research CEO, Carolyn Ellison.
God, this is more stand-up behavior.
The actual evidence suggests that Ellison is both a better trader and much savvier than Bankman-Fried. She modeled out a risk scenario that matched almost exactly what happened at FTX, for instance, to try to keep him from sinking $2 billion into venture investing. And like what happens is he's putting, all this money into advertising, into like playing celebrities. He's putting like $2 billion into these random series of investments. And she's like, hey, we've taken depositor money to gamble with. We have to keep more cash on hand. Otherwise, the whole exchange could collapse. Sam ignores her. The exchange collapses. And then he blames her for not hedging, right? And a hedge is when you take like a bet that one thing will happen, you take the opposite bet at a smaller amount of money so that no matter what happens, you can't lose too much money, right?
Right.
But there's no hedging the kind of risks that FTX was taking because the fundamental risk was we don't have enough money if there's a run on the bank,
Well, it's like their risk was we're never going to die. Like you can't hedge that.
Yeah.
What is wild to me is like everything you're describing is ridiculous, and it makes total sense that it fucking imploded in the catastrophic way that it did. But then you also, so much of it sounds like the kind of stuff that, for example, Michael Lewis might report on is a tremendous scam that worked out great for everybody.
Yeah. And it's so, again, that quote from The Verge is pretty similar to how most reporters who were there at the trial described it. It is wildly different from how Michael Lewis describes how Sam reacts on the stage, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, like, obviously most people were able to see, oh, yeah, Sam is just lying on the stand. He's obfuscating. He's refusing to answer the question. But Michael Lewis Not only does Michael Lewis like being lied to by Sam Bankman-Fried, he thinks Sam's defensive cloud of bullshit, right? This like word salad is better than the truth. And he says this in his fucking podcast. Jamie, you're going to love this clip.
Today, he didn't get in as much trouble as he got yesterday, though.
Not as much, but still a little bit. More than other witnesses.
Yeah, that's true. The bigger point is the judge is sitting there listening to see if Sam is actually answering the question.
Because he now knows he doesn't do that, yeah.
Or generating a word salad for us all to consume. And I was thinking about this again today. Why Sam's word salads are so fun. Like why he gets away with it. Like most people, when they don't answer a question, your alarm bells go off pretty quickly. Like that, you just redirect it in some way. He's really, really good at starting the answer in a place where you think, oh, that's where the beginning of the answer belongs. And then making a little jump into things that are actually interesting to know about. So you're not bored. Mm-hmm. You're actually interested in what he's saying.
You're saying like there's substance to it. He's not just saying nothing. He's saying something that's substantive and makes you think it's just not what you asked. But then you're thinking and you forget what you asked.
That's exactly what happens.
Yeah, so that's like he's just saying that like, yeah, Sam's lies. He's really good at lying. Like, and it's fun to listen to him lie, as if that's a defense, right? Where they're saying like, well, they really painted a different picture of Sam because they, you know, he got to get up on the stage and bullshit.
That's a very interesting exchange to listen to as well, because it's like, you know, because it's very clear that Michael Lewis has very little to do with this podcast. Yeah. I don't know. Like I can think of a number of examples of a like big name podcaster coming on their show to like be combative with the people who are actually making the show for them. And that like exchange too is like, no, like I know what you're saying, but And even in what she's describing, like the court approach is either he's a genius or he's like an incompetent sweetie pie, but you're just like, or he's a malevolent dumbass, which does seem to be the case.
A con man.
Yeah.
But like, I love this idea that like, we're getting to see the real Sam, who is a guy who never answers your actual question. But like, I want to continue the clip because Lewis says something very, very ridiculous right after this.
Okay.
He's really, really good at starting the answer in a place where you think, oh, that's where the beginning of the answer belongs. And then making a little jump into things that are actually interesting to know about. So you're not bored. Mm-hmm. You're actually interested in what he's saying.
You're saying like there's substance to it. He's not just saying nothing. He's saying something that's substantive and makes you think it's just not what you asked. But then you're thinking and you forget what you asked.
That's exactly what happens. It's engaging. It's like maybe it's even better than the answer to the question. Like
right,
he's asked,
maybe it's what you should have asked.
Yes, maybe it's what you should have asked. That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's Sam. The questions Sam answers that aren't what he's being asked are what you should have asked, right? Like he's smarter than you, the interviewer, and he knows what you actually should have asked, which I just thought was a wild thing for a journalist to say. This is, you know, we're getting to the end here, but the last thing I wanted to bring up was maybe the most interesting case of Michael Lewis following Sam's crap, which is him believing that Sam's outfit, his hairstyle, his poor hygiene are all evidence of his brilliance, right? Sam just didn't have time to like take care of his appearance in any way. He was too smart to waste any of like his brain power on that. And that article in Jacobin gives a really good summary of how the actual testimony of Sam's former friends in court blew this idea out of the water. The prosecutor followed with questions about Sam's approach to public relations. Ellison explained he was trying to cultivate an image of himself as a sort of very smart, competent, somewhat eccentric founder. I was sitting in an overflow room on that day, so when the prosecutor asked, how would you describe the defendant's personal appearance through 2022, the room was allowed to erupt into laughter. Ellison replied, he looked like he didn't put a lot of effort into his personal appearance. He dressed sort of sloppily and didn't cut his hair often. He said he thought his hair had been very valuable. He said ever since Jane Street, he thought he had gotten higher bonuses because of his hair, and it was an important part of FTX's narrative and image.
God,
first
embarrassing, but also I think, you know, clearly predicated on the dipshit billionaires that came before him. Like there is a clear aesthetic and a clear, like, slovenly genius thing that he's like, it's strategic.
And that's interesting, right? The fact that Sam is standing on the shoulders of giants, of Steve Jobs' unwashed shoulders, like, and Mark Zuckerberg's hoodie and whatever, when he dresses like a
genocide hoodie that he wears.
Yeah. And it's like, Lewis describes it as like everything in Sam's appearance felt less like a decision than a decision not to make a decision. And no, what everyone says at FTX is like, he was obsessed with like his hair. When they were trying to build their $200 million or whatever new headquarters, his only design note was that it should be shaped so it looked from the side like his hairs do. Because he thought that, like, he thought it was iconic, right? Like,
which is also based on what we were just listening to, what the logo to that podcast is the shape of his hair. Everyone's playing into it. It's
fucking wild. Anyway, Jamie, that's my episode. Do you think we should fire Michael Lewis into the sun?
Well, I was thinking earlier, I am very curious because I think it's like a waste of time to ask, like, will Michael Lewis have another opportunity to course correct his career? Of course he will.
Yes. He's going to write 70 more books.
Well, what I'm curious about is like where he goes from here. I feel like it's pretty telling if you've been conned to this fucking degree, because no one clocked him in The Blind Side, but now he's been pretty severely clocked as like giving in to his worst biases and reporting it as fact. And I do wonder, like, if that's the position you're in and you will absolutely write another book because you're unkillable financially. Like, I wonder which direction he's going to go in. Is he going to be hyper cautious? Is he going to play it safe? Is he going to be self-reflective at all? Or is he going to double down on the falling for it kind of stuff? I genuinely don't know, because I just, like, it's very hard to discern what kind of person, like, it seems like he's certainly, like high in his own supply and is like, well, of course anyone could have fallen for it. But he is sort of conceding to the fact that he fell for it. I just am curious what happens to someone from there.
My suspicion, and maybe I'll be wrong about this, I think we'll know pretty soon. I think he's going to do another Sam. I specifically think he's going to.
Sam.
A second Sam has hit the Michael Lewis bibliography.
Right.
And it's going to be Sam Altman. Like, he's going to do a Sam Altman, the OpenAI guy who just got fired from his job. He's going to do a book on Sam Altman, I suspect. I think the only
for fuck's sake, you're probably right. You're probably, because then he'll be like, and I would know. I can see through Sam's now. Having been conned by one, I certainly won't be conned by
Sam
two.
Sam me once, Sam on you. Sam me twice, won't get Sammed again,
I am
just like
father
George Bush
of
said.
Sam, son of Sam, eat shit. Wow. No, that...
That's my guess as to where this goes, is Sam Altman.
Why is Michael Lewis being presented with a second Sam? Doesn't seem fair.
Second Sam has hit that. Well, I've already done that joke once.
And it worked.
And it always works, Jamie. It really always works. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't feel... I would say that this is like in the top 20 percentile of Bastards episodes I've come out feeling like, I don't feel that bad. I usually feel like really dire. I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
He's in forever jail.
Mm-hmm. He is in forever jail, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of forever jail, Jamie, talent is like a jail that locks you into, for example, making a weekly podcast. And I am happy that you and I are about to be cellmates.
We are. I'm so excited. We get to do the fun thing where we can't talk much about it yet, but there's a weekly
can't talk
podcast.
Much about it, but Jamie Loftus Weekly is coming to the Cool Zone Network.
Early
you are
next
going
year.
to be the cool hand Luke of our podcast prison.
You're welcome.
God, I would love to be the cool hand Luke of the podcast prison. I got to get some new outfits.
Got to get some new outfits. No, that's not the one. Is that the one where he throws a baseball at the wall, or is that The Great Escape? I feel like that was Cool Hand Luke.
In a long time.
Neither have I. Not since I was like 7. So I don't know.
Wow, you saw Cool Hand Luke when you were 7?
Yeah, my mom loved that movie.
Nice.
My mom had very strict rules on like what I could watch as movies as a kid, unless it was a movie she liked, which is why I was in first grade when we watched Alien. So,
ooh, that explains so much about you to me too. Like you saw Alien when you were
so
6.
excited that all the men die and the woman didn't. That like, yeah, she wanted me to see that movie at a very young age.
What a legacy. Truly, what a legacy.
Yeah, the sentence "because men are stupid" was uttered 2 or 3 times during that movie.
Which does unpack a lot of the plot, intended or not. My mom would let me watch soap operas very young, and I would be like, what do they mean when they say making love? And she would say, what do you think? I'm like, I don't know. I'm 7.
Yeah. You have not equipped me to answer that question, mother.
Well, yes, weekly podcast coming soon, early next year. What's it about? You guess, but don't contact me about it because you're wrong.
Yeah. A second Jamie has hit the cool zone. I mean, you've done more than 2 podcasts. This joke never worked, but whatever.
But a first Jamie has hit the cool zone weekly.
That's right.
Jamie,
that's right.
what podcast is this of ours? Oh God, how many? This will be what?
Oh my God! Oh,
it's impossible to say. It's impossible to say.
When I think it's like 6.
Yeah,
I think it's like 6. We've entered the half dozen range. It's getting dangerous.
That's so cool for us.
I know. We're forever wives.
Yeah.
Sam Bankman-Fried, forever jail.
Forever jail.
Us, forever wives.
Oh.
So, Jamie, anything else you wanted to plug before we ride on out of here?
Fucking
like Michael
buy
Lewis
raw
into the sunset?
dog, bitches.
Yeah, it's the holidays. Are you looking for something to get for your loved or hated one? I won't know. Buy a copy of Raw Dog. It's my book about hot dogs. And if you don't like hot dogs, the title's funny. And I think that's, about 60% of the purchases I've gotten have been off that alone. So you should buy Raw Dog. And
Mm-hmm. Buy Raw Dog and... No, I'm not going to make a Raw Dog joke. That's just going to get me in trouble. Anyway, buy a Cooler Zone Media subscription and you won't have to hear ads. Or don't buy a Cooler Zone Media subscription and continue to listen to ads. I don't care. Live your life. I'm not your fucking dad.
If you really want to hear the advertisers that Robert's disparaging, I personally think it's more fun to imagine it. So you should get a Cooler Zone Media subscription.
Yeah. Once everyone's on Cooler Zone Media, then we can finally get that sweet Lockheed Martin subscription that whatever ad deal that I've been wanting to have.
Mm-hmm. And then Robert can finally live inside a grenade. Like it's always been his dream.
That's been my dream. That's been my dream, Jamie. Yeah. All right, we're done.
Bye.
We did it.
Behind the Bastards is a production of Cool Zone Media. For more from Cool Zone Media, visit our website, coolzonemedia.com, or check us out on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Behind the Bastards is now available on YouTube. New episodes every Wednesday and Friday. Subscribe to our channel, youtube.com/@BehindTheBastards.
Sink into affordable luxury. Anabay is the only machine washable sofa, inside and out. With stain-resistant slip covers and a cloud-like frame duvet, everything goes right in the wash. Plus, the modular design lets you change the look of your space anytime. Visit washablesofas.com to upgrade your home. Shop up to 60% off site-wide, with sofas starting at just $699 and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Shop now at washablesofas.com. Offers are subject to change, and certain restrictions may apply.
Flag football is exploding, and iFlag is leading the way. As the Guinness World Record holder, iFlag hosts premier flag football tournaments nationwide for boys, girls, high school girls, and adults. From first-time players to elite competitors, iFlag delivers top-level competition, unforgettable experiences, and a community built around the game. Ready to be part of it? Join the movement. Find your tournament and learn more at iflag.org. That's iflag.org.
This is Radhi Devlukia from A Really Good Cry. I absolutely love being outdoors, even if it's just stepping outside for a bit of fresh air between meals or taking a mindful walk to clear my head. But the one thing that can really ruin that is when my feet feel cramped in my shoes. So I switched to ultra running, and honestly, it makes such a difference. What I love most is their signature Ultra Fit Comfort Balance Strength. They have this roomy toe box that lets my toes actually spread and move naturally, so I really appreciate that. And I feel more grounded and balanced with every single step. It's like my feet can finally do their job, using all those little muscles that make me feel stronger the more I move. Whether you are a marathon runner, beginner or advanced, or just getting outside to train, Ultras have become my go-to for running and moving mindfully. They fit so well, they're so comfortable, and they just move with you. Shop now at ultrarunning.com and use my code CRY10 for 10% off. That's ALTRA running.com. Experience Ultra and stay out there.
Discover a spectacular island destination with crystal blue seas, endless sunshine, and the cool Bahamian breeze. Baha Mar, located in Nassau, Bahamas, offers your choice of 3 luxury hotels: the richly refined Rosewood, the playfully hip SLS, and the stylishly modern Grand Hyatt. With over 45 restaurants, bars, and lounges, Baha Mar serves up delicious dining from world-renowned chefs like Daniel Boulud and Marcus Samuelson. Nightlife venues like the new Jean Baptiste Jazz Club and the Caribbean's most luxurious casino. At Baha Mar, you'll find every pleasure under the sun and one-of-a-kind experiences for the entire family, like Baha Bay, our 15-acre lush tropical water park, interactive wildlife experiences, including our daily flamingo parade, world-class golf, tennis, spa, and so much more. Visit bahamar.com today and discover a vacation destination where memories are made for a lifetime. Baha Mar, life spectacular.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.